Chapter 361. The dean did not notice anything unusual. Instead, he suppressed his anger and apologized with a fake smile. Yes, but Professor C, you don't have to report this matter to the higher-ups. Why don't you cancel the results and let Hungda settle it themselves? In such an important exam, once someone was found to be cheating, they would go to jail. However, if Bei Yunj was really arrested because of this, not only would it affect the other high-ranking students, but it would also affect Hungda's reputation. Dean, you're very biased against student Pei. Si Qingyan glanced at him and sneered coldly. Yes. Before the dean could react, he instinctively agreed. Then he felt that something was amiss. What do you mean? Just because the students below the stage shouted that they cheated a few times, you can come to a conclusion without any investigation? Si Qingyan's tone was cold and mocking. Is it because Hungda has always treated its students like this, or do you have any special opinions about me, the invigilator? The dean's expression was ugly and he panicked. No, Professor C, you've misunderstood. How would I dare to have any opinions about you? He had never expected Si Qingyan to have such a reaction to this matter. The others couldn't hear their conversation either. Look, Professor C's expression is so bad. Bei Yunj must have cheated. What else? Everyone knows what level Bei Yunj is at. It's not like Hungda is crazy to protect her at this time. Someone could not help but mock. How could there be such a stupid person in this world? Even cheating had to be known by everyone before he was satisfied. At this moment, Teacher Wen hurriedly walked to the dean and braced himself. Dean, actually, this might be a misunderstanding. Previously, Teacher Zhao in our class said that, book bag net, Bei Yunj has potential. She might be able to surprise everyone. If there's really a misunderstanding in this matter, it can be resolved. Teacher Wen had long known that the dean did not like Bei Yunj, but what if something happened to Bei Yunj in his hands? Who knew? The next moment, the dean turned around mischievously and said with a smile, Congratulations, Teacher Wen. Your student has gotten first place. You're really lucky. After saying this, Teacher Wen's entire body trembled, and he looked at the teaching director with an extremely shocked expression. Did he take the wrong medicine? He actually had such an attitude. Next. Just as everyone on the field was discussing heatedly and Cheng Zihuai was waiting for Bei Yunj's decision, the dean of teaching stood on the rostrum. I hope that all of you will not slander others for no reason. If you think that anyone is cheating, you can call them immediately and leave a complaint to the competition organizer. The smiles on the faces of the people who had just mocked Bei Yunj froze when they heard the dean's stern words. What was the dean talking about? Did Bei Yunj still need someone to check if they could get first place? Isn't this obvious? The award ceremony will continue. Any student who disrupts this grand occasion will be given a demerit. After the dean finished speaking, Cheng Zihuai and the others who were standing beside him had already turned green and red. They were extremely embarrassed. What? If the award ceremony continued, wouldn't that mean they were going to be Bei Yunj's foil? Chapter 362. Teacher? Leia clenched her fists and was about to speak when Cheng Zihuai stopped her. Cheng Zihuai looked expressionless, but his tone was cold. Don't say any more. After the next exam, she'll spit out everything that needs to be spat out. Leia immediately understood when she heard that. The midterm exam was in a week. If Bei Yunj's physics results for the midterm exam were still the same as before, 20 to 30 points. Wasn't it clear how this result came about? Seeing Bei Yunj's lazy eyes as if she had a clear conscience, Cheng Zihuai and the rest looked even more embarrassed. Student Pei, your certificate. All the best. The principal's hands were stiff as he tried his best to appear very loving. However, the atmosphere on the stage had already reached the peak of strangeness. Bei Yunj had already gotten full marks in the competition. Wasn't this fantastical enough? Many people felt that this scene was ridiculous and ironic. Suddenly, I'm not here. Why are you giving the student an award? Everyone turned around and saw Teacher Huang walking over with a dark expression. Everyone was excited. Teacher Huang was the person who was the least afraid of power and hated cheating. This time he would definitely expose Bei Yunj's true colors. Everyone seemed to have vented their anger as they quietly waited for this scene to arrive. Who's first? Teacher Huang glanced at Teacher Yi, his tone ambiguous. Meanwhile, the smiles on the faces of Hungda's principal and teachers, which were already uglier than crying, were successfully broken. It's over. Even Teacher Huang was here this time. Hungda was going to be dragged down by Bei Yunj. This is Bei Yunj, Teacher Yi said gently. Teacher Huang frowned and his gaze landed on Bei Yunj. The girl's eyes were lazy and bright. Her beautiful eyes were curved and she didn't look like a good student. You did very well this time. You're the first person to score full marks in the past 10 years that I've been setting the exam papers. Hearing Teacher Huang's words, Bei Yunji's eyes flickered and she did not say anything for a moment. Si Qingyan, who was beside her, almost couldn't help but laugh out loud when he saw Bei Yunji's strange and complicated gaze. Master Pei had really been wronged. His own student had won the International First-Class Shinga Computer Competition Award, but it was not enough. At this moment he was being praised because he had won first place in the National High School Physics Competition. The scene was too realistic. Thank you. Bei Yunji was silent for a long time. In the end he could only reach out and pat him on the shoulder as encouragement. Mr. Huang, the principal was speechless. Everyone present, Si Qingyan couldn't hold it in anymore. He turned around and laughed until his shoulders trembled. Ah! What kind of deity was Master Pei? Good luck to you too. I've seen your paper. The way you solve the questions is very unusual. Which teacher did you learn from? Teacher Huang was a person who loved talents. In the face of a talent like Bei Yunji he was unbelievably kind. Bei Yunji said, Mr. Zhong Xinglin. Si Qingyan was speechless. Does old Master Zhong know about this? Mr. Zhong? No wonder when Elder Zhong was still in high school, no one could compare to him in science. A great teacher produces a great student. Teacher Huang nodded emotionally. His voice was neither too loud nor too soft, but many people present heard it clearly. Oh, Mr. Zhong Xinglin? Could it be that Elder Zhong had given Bei Yunji a question this time? Some time ago, Elder Zhong had come to Hengda once, so Hengda had introduced him to the students. Such an outstanding researcher was tutoring Bei Yunji? What kind of good luck did Bei Yunji have? Chapter 363. For a moment, some people began to waver. Could it be that Elder Zhong had personally prepared the questions for Bei Yunji? Was that why she could do so well? However, most people still didn't believe it. No matter how powerful Elder Zhong was, everyone knew very well what kind of useless person Bei Yunji was. How could a student who usually scored 20 to 30 marks get full marks in the competition? This wasn't a monthly exam paper, but a competition paper. A competition paper written by teacher Huang Qi. The teachers of Hengda had different thoughts, but seeing that the principal didn't say anything, they all shut up. Until the end of the award ceremony. Bei Yunji was quickly called to the office. Other than teacher Zhao Yi who taught Bei Yunji, the dean of teaching and the principal were also there. Representative, your results are real, right? Teacher Zhao Yi smiled. He wasn't doubting that her results were fake. It was just that he had always felt that Bei Yunji's results couldn't be only 20 to 30 marks. Previously, when he was punishing Bei Yunji by copying Bei Yunji's answers, he saw that Bei Yunji had finished copying once and then started to write from memory. With such amazing memory, did she look like someone who only scored 20 to 30 marks? Bei Yunji, how did you get the answers to the competition? The dean of teaching's voice was especially harsh. Director, I'm talking to my student. Can you please stop? Zhao Yi rolled his eyes without giving him any face. The dean of teaching was so angry that his face turned green and red. His student had done such a thing, and he still dared to defend her? Teacher Zhao, don't waste Bei Yunji's time, the principal reminded him. Hearing this, Zhao Yi cursed even more. If he didn't want to waste Bei Yunji's time, why didn't he ask her? Wasn't he just afraid that the Qin family would settle the score with him? Representative, just say it. I believe you. Zhao Yi turned his head and leaned back in his office chair with a smile. Number 5 Bei Yunji said calmly, you guessed right, Teacher Zhao. When Zhao Yi heard this he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Good girl. He was almost led by the nose by Bei Yunji. Alright, you can go back. You have to take the exam properly next time. Teacher Zhao Yi glanced at her and said calmly. Hearing this, the dean looked unwilling. Mr. Zhao Yi, aren't you too biased towards Bei Yunji? Before she could finish her question, she heard Bei Yunji say lazily, Goodbye, teacher. Shortly after, Bei Yunji did not even look at her and left immediately. It was as if he, the head of teaching, didn't exist. Zhao Yi, are you going to let her go just like that? The dean was furious. Zhao Yi stopped drinking his tea and slowly glanced at him. You still want to treat her to a meal? The head of teaching, you. In any case, I believe my students. If you don't believe me, you can ask them yourself. Alright, I still have to mark the homework. Please be quiet for a while, director. After saying that, Zhao Yi began to pretend to mark homework. Seeing this scene, the principal was silent for a moment. Subsequently, the principal said, Let's wait until next week's exam. When the dean of teaching heard this, he immediately reacted. That's right. If Bei Yunj really had this ability, her results for next week's physics exam would not be bad. On the other hand, it would prove that her results were fake. The dean of teaching thought of this and felt relieved. Chapter 364. After school. Bei Yunj was held back and was not allowed to leave. She glanced at Lu Yuanxi. What's the matter? To celebrate your first place today, let's go eat something? With that said, Lu Yuanxi hooked his arm around Chu Zhixing's neck. Isn't that right, Brother Chu? Chu Zhixing's first reaction was to look at Bei Yunj. Yes, Master Pei, do you want to go? Without waiting for Chu Zhixing to finish speaking, Lu Yuanxi covered his mouth and smiled. Enough. She doesn't want to hear the last sentence. Bei Yunj, she didn't know what these two people were up to. At the barbecue stall, Bei Yunj glanced at her surroundings and had the urge to turn around and leave. You said you'd treat us here? This was the first time Bei Yunj came to a roadside stall to eat. Lu Yuanxi nodded matter-of-factly. Isn't it good? The grilled eggplants here are delicious. Bei Yunj's eyes moved. I still have something to do, or, Master Pei, don't embarrass me. Lu Yuanxi immediately stopped her with a handsome smile. Even the girls passing by couldn't help but take a few more glances at him. In the end, Bei Yunj was still sitting at a square table full of barbecue. Here. Seeing Lu Yuanxi hand the coke over, Bei Yunj glanced at the beer in his hand. She didn't say anything and silently took it. Otherwise, if Huashidu smelled the alcohol on her when they went back later, who knew what would happen? Don't give little Chu any alcohol. Bei Yunj glanced at him warningly. Lu Yuanxi. He could already imagine what would happen if his desk mate had a son in the future. Then, Lu Yuanxi didn't forget to get to the point. Master Pei, your results can't be real, right? So among the three of them, he was the only one who was really a bad student? In the past, he had been mocking Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj's hand stopped and she looked at Lu Yuanxi again. She didn't say anything. But this gaze already said everything. Lu Yuanxi almost cursed. This was actually real? Brother Lu, actually Master Pei didn't do it on purpose. Chu Zhixing quickly explained. Unexpectedly, Lu Yuanxi turned his head and asked, So, you already knew? Chu Zhixing fell silent. Lu Yuanxi, out of three people's friendship there would always be one extra. Bei Yunj suddenly said, I never said that my grades were bad. Lu Yuanxi? So, was she blaming him for placing too much trust in the exam results? After a while. After Lu Yuanxi calmed down, he started to seriously study. Otherwise, when he asked questions, would Bei Yunj and Chu Zhixing think he was stupid behind his back? Thinking of this, Lu Yuanxi looked at Bei Yunj and Chu Zhixing with an even colder gaze. Bei Yunj and Chu Zhixing, at this moment. A few people from the neighboring school sat at the table next to them. Do you know the boy who quit school for his girlfriend in grade 2 class 4? The boy asked mysteriously. I know. Back then, it was such an uproar and grand occasion. Another person shook his head. Many girls in our class felt that the boy was very infatuated. Infatuated my ass. That person continued to sneer. Do you know? That boy came back last week. His class asked for a long time before they found out that his girlfriend was crazy. She scared him back. Because the conversation at the table next to them was not soft, Bei Yunj, who was closer, also stopped and her gaze darkened. Chapter 365. Sick? What kind of sickness can she have? She's the prettiest girl in the 6th class and it's her first time in a relationship. The boy laughed suggestively. What are you thinking? Of course it's not that kind of illness. It's something that runs in her family. She's mentally ill. The boy pushed him and continued, If you're sick, why are you in a relationship? Who are you trying to kill? Bei Yunj picked up the chopsticks in her hand casually. There was no emotion in her eyes. Isn't it too noisy? Lu Yuanxi sensed that something was wrong with Bei Yunj. No. Bei Yunj rested her chin on her hand lazily. Before her elbow could touch the table, Lu Yuanxi stopped her. Then, Bei Yunj saw him take a piece of tissue and put it under her elbow. He glanced at Bei Yunj in disdain and said, It's all oily. Why did he come here if he disliked it? Bei Yunj did not think much of it. Instead, she remembered what had happened that night and secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, no one knew what had happened that night. After returning home, Bei Yunj went upstairs to take a shower. Sitting in front of the desk, scenes from her previous life appeared in her mind. One moment, it was that woman's gentle face. The next moment, It was that woman who seemed to be crying and laughing at the same time. Her eyes were gloomy as she strangled her and asked her if she wanted to die with her. When she was young, she hated that woman called Meng Ying. Because of that woman. Even her gentleness was fake. Whenever that woman went crazy, she would be covered in injuries. Sometimes it would be smashed. Sometimes it would be burned by cigarette butts. But every time she woke up the next day and saw that arrogant woman crying in front of her, she could not help but walk in front of her and hug her gently. But from then on, Bei Yunj knew for the first time that she was a failure. Meng Ying and that man's marriage was a failure. If it were not for her grandfather's insistence, she might not have survived. Bookish. But what Bei Yunj did not expect was that the woman was dead. The day before her 18th birthday. Meng Liang bought new kitchenware and texted Bei Yunj that she wanted to make a birthday cake for her. However, when Bei Yunj returned home, she saw Meng Liang putting an overdose of medicine into the cake with her own eyes. However, the next day, the cake made by Meng Ying fell to the ground. On the table was a box of chocolates and a teddy bear that Meng Liang had prepared. Meng Liang was dead. There was also a letter left for Bei Yunj on the ground. Before long, Bei Yunj heard a knock on the door, which pulled her back from her memories. Yin? Bei Yunj's expression was clear. She turned her head and said, "Huh? What's wrong?" The man's magnetic voice came through the bedroom door. "Let's go downstairs for dinner." After Bei Yunj came back to her senses, she walked to the door and opened it. As soon as she looked up, she saw a tall and handsome man standing at the door. When Bei Yunj saw that he hadn't left, she instinctively asked, "Brother, what are you doing here?" "I'm waiting for you to go down with me." Huashidu's casual gaze landed on Bei Yunj. He suddenly reached out and gently placed the back of his warm and slender fingers on her forehead. "Yin, are you not feeling well?" Bei Yunj raised her head and looked at him. No. Huashidu felt that the temperature on the little girl's forehead was normal and did not say anything. However, he still noticed that Bei Yunj was not interested. After going downstairs. Chapter 366. Yin, are the dishes not to your liking today? The man suddenly spoke. No. Bei Yunj looked up instinctively. Maybe I went to eat with my friends after school. I see. Then brother will accompany you to shop later? As soon as Huashidu finished speaking, Bei Yunj's phone screen lit up. Bei Yunj glanced sideways and saw the caller ID clearly. Jiqing. Before Bei Yunj could answer, she saw Huashidu reach out even faster and hang up naturally. Huashidu curled his lips. If there's anything, let's talk tomorrow. Bei Yunj. On the other side, Jiqing was confused because the call had been hung up on. Had he been hung up on just now? Could it be that he had accidentally offended Miss Pei in the past 2 days? Bei Yunj, who was sitting in the front passenger seat, turned to look at him. Brother, where are we going? The man's side profile was superior, and his handsome eyes were noble and lazy. His shirt was rolled up elegantly, revealing a small section of his elegant forearm. I'll take you to relax. Bei Yunj was stunned for a moment, then quietly looked at the scenery outside the car window. Not long after, Bei Yunj arrived at the entrance of an archery club. President Hua. The lady at the front desk saw Huashidu bringing a young girl over and could not help but be surprised. Then she asked respectfully, "Are you too?" "Yes." "Then miss, please follow me." The lady at the front desk smiled and led Bei Yunj to the changing room. However, she could not help but be curious about the relationship between this overly beautiful girl and Huashidu. After all, this was the first girl President Hua had brought. After changing, Bei Yunj followed the lady at the front desk into the room. "Don't you need to get the bow?" The lady at the front desk reacted and smiled. "No need. President Hua has left 2 bows with us. Someone has already gone to get them for you." Bei Yunj did not expect Huashidu to come to this place often in the past. However, after thinking about it, Bei Yunj remembered that she had accidentally touched the man's firm and muscular abdomen last time. It did seem like he had been practicing all this time. It felt good to the touch. It was hard and he wondered what it would be like if he took it off. After Bei Yunj came back to her senses, she quickly diverted her attention to prevent herself from thinking too much. "Miss Pei, President Hua is over there." The receptionist reminded her. Bei Yunj followed her gaze. Seeing the way the man held the bow and arrow, he was no longer as lazy as usual. His elegant and noble eyes were indifferent and focused, which was particularly eye-catching. Subsequently, he loosened the bowstring between his slender fingers and hit the 10th ring. He looked very relaxed. However, this was a distance of 50 meters. Very few people could be so accurate. After all, the usual archery range only had a range of 10 to 20 meters. The receptionist suppressed the admiration and excitement in her eyes and whispered to Bei Yunj with a red face, "Miss, let me take you there." Bei Yunj, invisible seduction was the most deadly. "Yunyan, do you want to try?" In the blink of an eye, Huashidu saw Bei Yunj walking over. He laughed lightly and made way for the arrow. "I've never practiced 50 meters of archery before." Bei Yunj looked at the target in the distance and then at Huashidu. When the man heard this, his deep and magnetic laughter flowed out along with his sexy Adam's apple, making people's ears itch. "It's okay, brother, will teach you." After speaking, the man picked up a pair of black leather gloves and slowly put them on for Bei Yunj. Chapter 367. When this scene landed in the eyes of the receptionist, pink bubbles inexplicably appeared in her heart. President Hua and this young lady looked too much like a couple. This was the first time the receptionist had seen Huashidu doting on a young lady so much that he even personally put on gloves for her. Not only the receptionist but many other people in the venue also noticed the scene in the VIP area. After Bei Yunj drew the bow, she closed her right eye and aimed at the bullseye. Suddenly, the man behind her covered the back of her hand with his warm fingertips. The man's light and deep voice was tainted with a bewitching magnetism. Along with his warm breath, it tickled her ears. "Move over a little." Bei Yunj was so agitated that her entire body trembled slightly. Her ears were slightly hot, and her entire body was surrounded by the man's cold and pleasant smell. It gave her an inexplicable sense of security. Bei Yunj, how could she concentrate on shooting? Bei Yunj's thoughts had long drifted away. Her back, which was close to the man's chest, seemed to be able to feel the man's body temperature and the beating of his heart through a thin layer of clothing. "Let go." As Huashidu's deep voice sounded, Bei Yunj let go of her hand without even looking. She originally thought that it might be difficult to even hit the target this time, but she did not expect the man behind her to adjust for her and hit the bullseye. The next moment, a mischievous look flashed across the man's eyes. His gaze was frivolous as he asked casually, "Yunyan, I'm teaching you how to shoot. How can you learn when you keep watching me?" Bei Yunj looked at him with her beautiful eyes. After a moment she said, "Brother?" "Yes. You're too close to me. It's hard to focus." Bei Yunj did not hide why she was distracted at all, but her eyes were clear and serious. Hearing this, the man could not help but laugh. His low and lazy magnetic voice had a hint of a smile in it, which made people's faces turn red. "All right, then I'll stay away from Yunyun." Huashidu nodded and moved aside to let Bei Yunj practice by herself. Battle Bei Yunj had tried shooting targets with air rifles and short-range archery, so he quickly got the hang of it. Not far away, Huashidu's lips curled up slightly when he saw the unhappiness in the young lady's eyes dissipate. She didn't know what was wrong with the child, but he was so unhappy today. "President Hua?" Suddenly, the manager walked over from the side and shouted in a low voice. Huashidu glanced sideways at him. "What?" "President Fu has booked a private room, please have a seat there," the manager said carefully. Hearing this, the man's gaze was still fixed on Bei Yunj in the distance. He said lazily, "I'm not free." The manager, "Is it important for you to stand here and watch people shoot?" However, the manager did not dare to ask. He tried to persuade him carefully. "President Fu might have something to talk to you about. Or, should I invite President Fu over?" Hearing this, the man's eyes darkened and he glanced at him from the corner of his eyes. "We'll talk about it later." For the past 2 years, Fu Yanbai had always liked to bring along female companions in their early 20s. When he came over, he would inevitably see Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj had already mastered the shooting skills. Her hit rate soared and the shop assistant beside her was stunned. Was this a beginner? Wasn't she learning too quickly? "Yunyan, come and have something to drink." Hearing the man's voice not far away, Bei Yunj put down her bow and arrow. "Brother, was someone looking for you just now?" Chapter 368. In other words, he was telling Fu Yanbai that Huashidu was indeed not free, even if Master Du was only watching from the side. However, when the woman in the man's arms heard this, a dark look flashed past her eyes. She might know who the lady the manager was talking about was. Back then, if she had not offended this person, Master Du would not have chased her out of the whole corporation and never hired her again. Yu Qinya gritted her teeth and hid the malice in her eyes. Although she was lucky enough to be fancied by Fu Yanbai after leaving the whole corporation, she could not help but be afraid. After all, Fu Yanbai's female companions for the past 2 years were not older than 26 years old. Very few people could stay by his side for 2 months. Moreover, she felt that Fu Yanbai seemed to be starting to get tired of her. Fu Yanbai raised his eyebrows and interest appeared in his eyes. Master Du has a lady? This news was a rare thing for anyone to hear. Yes. The manager nodded. Unexpectedly, Yu Qinya hugged Fu Yanbai's arm and smiled. President Fu and Master Du are so close. Why don't we go and see what kind of girl Master Du has brought? She knew in her heart that Fu Yanbai was most interested in young girls in their early 20s. And that girl looked at most 20 years old. Yu Qinya thought about it and did not think that Bei Yunji's status could be very noble. On the contrary, it was more likely that she was Huashidu's female companion. If that was the case, if Fu Yanbai was interested in Bei Yunji, would Huashidu not even be willing to part with a female companion? Thinking of this, Yu Qinya could not help but smile as if she had vented her anger. Yes, we have to see who can capture Master Du. Fu Yanbai lowered his eyes and smiled. Seeing Yu Qinya leaning over, he naturally and lazily held her chin and kissed her gently. This scene made the manager lower his head even more. Not long after, Bei Yunji had already mastered the shooting skills and her hit rate was rising. The shop assistant beside her was stunned. Was this a beginner? Wasn't she learning too quickly? Yinyan, come and have something to drink. Hearing the man's voice not far away, Bei Yunji put down her bow and arrow. Brother, someone was looking for you just now? Bei Yunji also caught a glimpse of the conversation between the manager and Huashidu. Yes. Huashidu handed her a glass of orange juice and lazily tidied Bei Yunji's slightly messy hair. Bei Yunji saw that Huashidu did not say much, so she did not ask. She slowly glanced at the air rifle field not far away and became a little more interested. Yun Yun. Huashidu had just spoken when the phone in his pocket rang at an inappropriate time. Bei Yunji turned around and said, Brother, go and answer the phone. I'll go over there and try. Huashidu glanced at the name on his phone. Ji Yiqing. His eyes gradually became unclear and he smiled again. Okay, I'll come back when I'm done. However, unexpectedly, not long after Huashidu left, Bei Yunji walked to the entrance of the archery path. She had just wiped her air rifle when an ear-piercing sound drifted into her ears. I really didn't expect that I would have the chance to meet you in this life, Mississippi. Bei Yunji turned around and saw a handsome young man and a familiar-looking woman. You are? Bei Yunji did not recognize her and only asked leisurely. These words made Yu Qinya's face turn red, as if she had been greatly humiliated. Her eyes sparkled as she sneered, Miss, a noble person has short memories. Back then, in the whole corporation I received a lot of favors from you. Chapter 369. Hearing this, Bei Yunji seemed to remember such a person. She seemed to be a secretary. Bei Yunji turned around and continued to test her gun. She said lazily, Don't stand on ceremony. Hearing this, Yu Qinya's face turned red. Suddenly, the strange man who had been silent all this while had a possessive look in his eyes. He stared at her and asked, Your Master Du's female companion? Bei Yunji's first instinct was that this man was looking at her in a very uncomfortable way. Does this have something to do with sir? She did not even look at him and continued to test her gun after shooting. Yu Qinya could not help but feel nervous and looked at Fu Yanbai. She thought that Fu Yanbai would blame Bei Yunji for being rude. But she did not expect Fu Yanbai's eyes to be glued to her. He really liked Bei Yunji. Yu Qinya felt jealous and said arrogantly, Miss, this is Master Du's friend, President Fu. Isn't your attitude a little arrogant? A faint impatience and coldness appeared in Bei Yunji's eyes. She suddenly laughed. Her eyebrows were arrogant and her tone was lazy. So what if I am? Yu Qinya's face turned green. However, the look in Fu Yanbai's eyes became even more intense. This gaze was exactly the same as the first time Yu Ling looked at him. The shop assistant ran over and smiled carefully. I'm sorry, the VIP area has been booked today. If you still want to play, I'm afraid you'll have to go to the ordinary area. These words. Yu Qinya could not help but look at Bei Yunji with jealousy in her eyes. They were both female companions, why was Master Du so nice to her? Yu Qinya laughed and deliberately raised her voice. I didn't expect Miss to be so good at coaxing men at such a young age. Her words shocked the shop assistant. She did not expect Yu Qinya to say this in public. Yu Qinya. Fu Yanbai glanced at her with a warning look in his eyes. He had brought Yu Qinya with him because she looked a little like Yu Ling when she smiled. But the more he interacted with her, the more he felt that this woman was vulgar. However, Bei Yunj suddenly laughed, looking lazy and flirtatious. You're good at coaxing men. That's impressive. Yu Qinya's face stiffened, and the shop assistant's face turned red. When these words came out of this young lady's mouth, there was an inexplicable sense of ambiguity. Yu Qinya bit her lip and blurted out, shameless. As soon as he finished speaking, the person who was practicing suddenly turned his gun. Before anyone could react, he pulled the trigger at Yu Qinya. Yu Qinya was so frightened that she couldn't help but scream. Not only Yu Qinya but even the shop assistant was shocked. Fortunately, the bullet didn't hit anyone. After all, even an air rifle could easily injure people. If Bei Yunj had aimed the gun at Yu Qinya's face, it would probably have left a scar. At this moment, Yu Qinya woke up with a pale face and a weak body. That was because the bullet just now seemed to have scraped past her ear. Her ear was still burning with pain. Bei Yunj glanced at her and sneered slowly. So you can still shut up. Then I'll have to trouble you to work harder today and keep your mouth shut. Her cold words didn't allow anyone to comment. Yu Qinya's eyes reddened. She didn't expect Bei Yunj to treat her like this. Sir, why don't I take you and Miss to rest for a while? The shop assistant was really afraid that Bei Yunj would shoot her in the head. P.S. Holding an air rifle won't disfigure you. If you come out to diss me, you can check if the air rifle accidentally injured people in the death situation. Brainless comments will be deleted. End of this chapter. Chapter 370. They could not afford to offend President Fu. But they could not afford to offend President Hua. However, at this moment, Yu Qinya was so angry that her whole body was trembling. When she saw that Bei Yunj only scored 3 or 4 points, she could not help but sneer. What's the point of playing alone? If you're not afraid of losing, why don't you compete with me? Originally, she had accompanied Fu Yanbai here today to please him. After all, she was very good at shooting sports. But now, she had made up her mind to embarrass Bei Yunj on the spot. Bei Yunj's beautiful eyes were cold as she glanced at her indifferently. She smirked. You? Not at school. In her previous life, when Bei Yunj returned to the Pei family to inherit the family business, she had seen many female companions at the bar. But most of them were sensible. They knew their own status and could not cause trouble. As for the one in front of her, she was obviously brainless. Yu Qinya was furious. How could she not tell that Bei Yunj did not want to talk to her at all? Yu Qinya turned her head and begged the man beside her. President Fu, I just want to compete with Master Du's wife. Fu Yanbai glanced at her coldly, but his gaze landed on Bei Yunj again. He smiled. Sister, you don't want to? Previously, he had thought that Bei Yunj's personality was similar to Yu Ling's. But when Bei Yunj pointed her gun at Yu Qinya just now, he also felt that this girl was much wilder than Yu Ling. At least, Yu Ling would not dare to do such a thing. The impatience and coldness in Bei Yunj's eyes could not be suppressed. However, in the next moment, Yun. Not far away, the man's magnetic voice sounded, causing the hostility in Bei Yunj's eyes to dissipate. Brother. Her eyes curved. Compared to the way she ignored everyone just now, Bei Yunj was much more obedient now. When Yu Qinya heard this familiar voice, she froze and could not help but look at the man who was walking over. However, the man's gaze only landed on one person from the beginning to the end. What are you doing here? Washidu glanced at the others indifferently and finally asked Bei Yunj. Someone wants to compete with me in shooting. Bei Yunj felt Yu Qinya's eyes on Washidu and the corners of her lips curled up. She took a step closer to the man and naturally held Washidu's shirt. This scene almost made Yu Qinya's eyes spit fire. But who would have thought? Washidu did not shake off Bei Yunj. His gaze only landed on Fu Yanbai. Are you very free? Fu Yanbai laughed instead. Master Du has a good eye for female companions. How can this be a female companion? The man stretched out his hand lazily and casually scratched Bei Yunj's chin. His magnetic voice was so casual that it made people's ears go soft. This is the ancestor of the family. After saying this, everyone else was stunned. Not only Yu Qinya but even Fu Yanbai's smile froze. Washidu had always been pure and had few desires. He had never seen him treat other women differently. However, the person in front of him was the first one. Who do you want to compete with her? The man with clear eyes turned his head lazily again. It was obvious that he wanted to find trouble with Fu Yanbai for this girl. Master Du, do you have to be so unhappy? Fu Yanbai smiled. But everyone knew in their hearts. Fu Yanbai wanted Yu Qinya to compete with Bei Yunj. That was obvious. He treated Bei Yunj as Washidu's lover. Similarly, Yu Qinya looked at Huashidu and Bei Yunj standing together and resentment rose in her heart. Chapter 371. Suddenly. It's not that I don't want to. Then Bei Yunj curved her lips and her eyes were frighteningly cold. That will depend on what President Fu is willing to use as the wager. Fu Yanbai smiled. What do you want, sister? Is the Fu Corporation okay too? The girl's slow question made the entire place fall into silence. This sister seemed to be a ruthless person. Yun, I'm afraid President Fu can't make this decision. But President Fu can still afford 5% of the Fu Corporation's shares. The man let out a long laugh and said unhurriedly. It was obvious that Huashidu was going to support this girl. Fu Yanbai smiled. If Yaya wins, how much will President Hua have to fork out? 5% of the Hua Corporation. The man did not care. Hearing this, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. They didn't expect that such a simple competition would have such high stakes. 5% of the Fu Corporation could not be compared to 5% of the Hua Corporation. Fu Yanbai came back to his senses. I didn't expect Master Du to be so reckless. I'm just making my child happy. The man's lazy tone was indescribably indulgent. Then he naturally held the girl's wrist and led her to the archery path at the side. Bei Yunj felt the dry and warm palm on her wrist and her heart inexplicably skipped a few beats. There's a reason why brother has so many rotten peach blossoms. Bei Yunj walked beside the male actor and said in a double volume. This man could easily show just the right amount of intimacy. It made people's hearts throb and jump for joy. They wanted to take aim. When Huashidu heard this, he raised his eyebrows slightly. He looked casual and frivolous. But brother doesn't have a headache about rotten peach blossoms. He only has a headache about the ingrates at home. Bei Yunj, Yu Qinya, who was following behind, did not hear the conversation clearly, but her gaze was fixed on the man who took the initiative to hold Bei Yunj's hand. It was just as she had thought in the past. For a cold and abstinent man like Huashidu, once he was tainted by love, how terrible would he look? Even favoritism was enough to make one's heart beat wildly. But the person who pulled him down from the altar was another woman. Yu Qinya unconsciously clenched her fists. Jealousy and anger intertwined in her heart. The malice in her eyes was even more frightening. In front of the arrow path, Yu Qinya's face was cold. She tried her best not to make her face look distorted. How about we each shoot 10 times and see the total score? Major. Looking at Bei Yunj's indifferent expression, Yu Qinya couldn't help but sneer. Alright, I'll go first. Yu Qinya walked in front of the archery path and confidently picked up the air rifle, ready to work. Not long after, gunshots rang out one after another. The shop assistant beside him, who was counting the rings, had a look of admiration. Yu Qinya was indeed good at this. Out of the 10 gunshots, the lowest one was a 6-ring one. The rest were stable at 7 or 8 rings, and there was even a 10th ring. One had to know that the target used for the 10-meter standard archery track was very close to the standard target of the international competition. Although the difficulty was reduced by a lot, it was still difficult to hit the bullseye. 6 rings once, 7 rings 4 times, 8 rings 3 times, 9 rings once and 10 rings once. The total number of rings is 77. Hearing that the results were better than usual, Yu Qinya's eyes were filled with pride. Not far away. Fu Yanbai also smiled with interest. Master Du, I think I'm going to win this round. Is that so? Huashidu didn't seem to care. Bei Yunj might lose 5% of the Hua Corporation's shares. It's your turn now. Yu Qinya walked up to Bei Yunj arrogantly. Bei Yunj ignored her. Instead, he glanced at the man not far away. His upturned eyes curved slightly. Not long after, everyone saw this unfamiliar girl in front of them. She only adjusted for about half a minute before aiming. Chapter 372. Before anyone could react, the sound of gunshots suddenly rang out. This was completely unlike Yu Qinya, who would stop and adjust after shooting just now. The sound of gunshots almost didn't seem to be interrupted. It made people wonder if the person who was shooting now knew how to shoot. However, the result was unexpected. The shop assistant was stunned for a moment before he hurriedly said, 9 points? When they heard the lowest score, everyone froze. Yu Qinya, who was originally full of smugness, had a distorted expression. When Bei Yunj was testing the gun just now, she didn't even get a high score. But what was going on now? 9 times 10 points? This was the second time the shop assistant had encountered such a godly result. He almost suspected that he was in a dream. Was this result serious? Was this really not a godly person? How is this possible? Yuchinya subconsciously blurted out, her face pale. However, after Bei Yunji put down the gun, she turned around and smiled at Hoshidu. Her bright eyes were full of high spirits. Brother, I won. Seeing Bei Yunji turn around and look at him with a pair of sparkling eyes, Hoshidu inexplicably felt something tickle his heart. It was itchy and made his heart flutter slightly. Hoshidu's eyes gradually darkened and hid all the light. He suddenly walked towards her and casually reached out to help Bei Yunji tidy the clothes that were tied around her waist. He curled his lips and laughed hoarsely. Yes, amazing. This scene was indescribably doting. It was simply fatal. Many female friends around them felt their teenage hearts reignite. However, Yuchinya's face turned pale. She subconsciously took a step back and was a little distracted. How could this be? This woman was deliberately lying to her. This woman clearly knew how to shoot, but she deliberately didn't. Wasn't it obvious that she wanted to see her make a fool of herself? At this moment, unexpectedly, Fu Yanbai's expression was not bad. Instead, he looked at Bei Yunji with even more passion. He didn't expect the girl beside Hoshidu to be so powerful. Hoshidu had really picked up a treasure. Suddenly, I almost forgot about President Fu's bet. Bei Yunji's voice sounded. Yuchinya bit her lip and stared at Bei Yunji. She couldn't stop complaining. You did it on purpose. You obviously know how to do it, yet you still want to compete with me. I don't know how to do it. Why should I compete with you? Bei Yunji sneered. These words made Yuchinya's face turn red. It's time for President Fu to fulfill his promise. Bei Yunji wiped his hands slowly, but there was no warmth in his beautiful eyes, and the curve of his lips was cold. Hearing this, Yuchinya subconsciously looked at Fu Yanbai. Her beautiful eyes were filled with tears, and one couldn't help but be moved. Fu Yanbai spoke. When the time comes, I'll have someone draft the agreement and send it to Master Du. Before Yuchinya could heave a sigh of relief, he looked at her again and said coldly, You don't have to follow me anymore. In an instant, Yuchinya's face was pale and she was trembling all over. She didn't expect Fu Yanbai to treat her like this in public. President Fu, Before Yuchinya could say anything, she met Fu Yanbai's cold gaze and subconsciously didn't dare to say anything. But when she turned around, when she saw Bei Yunji, her expression became indignant again. What right did this person have to be chosen by Hoshidu? What right did she have to be stepped on by this person? She looked at Bei Yunji and couldn't help but mock. Are you very proud? But no matter how proud you are, you're just a person who relied on fishing men to get to where you are. As soon as she finished speaking, Yuchinya didn't notice that Hoshidu's gaze had become colder. The atmosphere became even colder. Before anyone could guess, Hoshidu suddenly said, Ask your manager to come over. Hearing this, the staff quickly nodded and immediately called the manager to deal with the situation. When the others saw this scene, they also knew that Yuchinya had completely offended this gentleman. Yuchinya was also afraid, but she didn't want to believe that Hoshidu really didn't have any intention of taking pity on her. Then she heard the manager's voice. President Hua, why are you looking for me? The manager said with a fawning smile. Your boss's biological sister is being bullied in his shop. Do you still need me to settle this matter? Hoshidu's unhurried voice sounded. However, when the manager heard this, he was stunned. The boss's sister? The people around also regained their senses. This archery hall was opened by Qin Yu, the boss's sister. Wasn't she the eldest sister of the Qin family? Everyone was in disbelief. They didn't expect to meet the eldest sister of the Qin family, who would make the headlines from time to time. The manager was even more stunned. Why eldest sister? He never thought that President Hua would not bring along a young female companion, but his boss's sister. What was going on? Bei Yunji also furrowed her eyebrows quietly. She didn't expect this to be Qin Yu's place. Impossible. She's the Qin family's sister? Yuchinya's expression changed immediately and she could not continue speaking, as if she had been struck by lightning. After all, everyone still remembered clearly that the Qin family had spent hundreds of millions to celebrate Bei Yunji's birthday. If you don't handle this well, your boss will talk to you. Hoshidu said calmly. Hearing this, the manager shivered. He had long heard about how much their boss doted on his sister. If his boss found out that his biological sister was being bullied here, he, as the manager, might be done for. However, what made him angry but not dare to say anything was that this master only told him now. When he first came in, he didn't even inform him. Otherwise, he would have arranged for at least 4 security guards to follow Bei Yunji. No matter what, eldest sister was the most important. The manager took a deep breath and smiled. I'll settle this for eldest sister. Don't worry. With that said, the manager looked at Bei Yunj, his gaze becoming even more amiable. If eldest sister wants to play in the future, just call me in advance. I'll empty the VIP area for eldest sister. Seeing this treatment, Yu Qinya finally knew how far apart she was from this woman in front of her. Yu Qinya's legs turned to jelly. She didn't expect to really kick an iron board this time. Bei Yunj replied casually and looked at Huoshidu. Brother, let's go back. Okay. The moment Huoshidu finished speaking, Fu Yanbai's gaze darkened. Then, before he could follow, the woman beside him grabbed his wrist. President Fu, I was wrong. Can you forgive me? A trace of coldness and impatience flashed past Fu Yanbai's eyes. Watching as Huoshidu left, he shook Yu Qinya off and didn't say anything. He didn't care how badly the woman behind him was crying. Outside the door. President Hua is leaving so quickly. Aren't you willing to bring Sister Pei to have dinner with me? Chapter 373. Fu Yanbai, who had chased after her, kept staring at Bei Yunj. There was a hint of a smile in his refined eyes, but his gaze made people feel uncomfortable. Hearing this, Bei Yunj's expression when she was talking to Huoshidu just now was gone. Her beautiful eyes were cold. She could feel that he had a motive. Suddenly, the man beside her held Bei Yunj's hand. His warm palm stunned Bei Yunj. Huoshidu's tone was casual. There's no need. Fu Yanbai put out the cigarette in his hand. He did not hide his interest in Bei Yunj. His gaze was filled with possessiveness. Master Du, consider it as doing me a favor this time. How about giving me a girl? He could tell that this girl treated Huoshidu differently from the others. But with Huoshidu's status, what kind of woman couldn't he want? Who would think? The man only sneered softly as if there was a hint of disdain and coldness in his voice. He held the girl's hand and said in a low and magnetic voice, Fu Yanbai, this child is mine. Hearing this, Fu Yanbai was stunned for a moment. He obviously did not expect Huoshidu to give such an answer. President Hua, you're not someone who cares about women. Fu Yanbai clenched his fists, his gaze still on Bei Yunj. Fu Yanbai, how can you go crazy? The corners of the man's upturned eyes were charming, but there was no warmth in his pale-colored pupils. His unhurried voice was gentle but cold. But if anyone dares to touch my child, I will personally cripple half of his life. Bei Yunj looked sideways. She saw the man's handsome side profile. He looked casual, but it made her heart flutter. President Hua, you know that she looks like Yu Ling? Fu Yanbai was unwilling to accept it. Huoshidu sneered. No one can compare to my girl. Don't have any ideas about my people. Otherwise, with old Master Fu around, I don't mind teaching you how to be a person on his behalf. After that, Huoshidu left with Bei Yunj. Fu Yanbai was left standing on the spot with a terrifying gaze and his hands clenched into fists. Outside the door, Bei Yunj looked at Huoshidu. Brother? This was the first time she saw Huoshidu like this. After a while, Huoshidu's expression gradually returned to normal. He smiled and pinched her face casually. Did you scare our Yunyun? No, Sakura. Bei Yunj asked subconsciously, what's wrong with that person? How could he be so obsessed with someone he met for the first time? If you see him in the future, make a detour. Huoshidu explained slowly and added, this is a lunatic. 2 years ago, he forced the woman he liked to jump into the sea. All these years, Fu Yanbai had been looking for the whereabouts of that woman. She heard that the young female companions beside Fu Yanbai all looked a little like that woman. Do I look like the person he likes? Bei Yunj recalled Fu Yanbai's words just now. Huoshidu's gaze landed on her. Just as Bei Yunj felt a little awkward and wanted to turn her face away, the man suddenly approached her. He looked at her and smiled. His low and magnetic voice carried a hint of warmth that seemed to be able to stir the wind by her ears. You don't look like it. Our Yunyun is unique. Bei Yunj, why did this man always feel like he was whispering sweet nothings? Brother, don't you have something to talk to me about? Bei Yunj changed the topic. The man seemed to pause for a moment before he chuckled hoarsely. Yes, there's something. When Bei Yunj heard this, she instinctively looked up. Unexpectedly, she met the man's dark eyes. There was an inexplicable sense of aggression as he stared straight at her. Chapter 374. Bei Yunj instinctively looked up when she heard this. Unexpectedly, she bumped into the man's dark and indistinct eyes. They were staring straight at her with an inexplicable sense of aggression. Bei Yunj quickly turned her face away. "Brother, why don't we go back and—" Before she could finish her sentence. "Yinyan, can you do me a favor?" The man suddenly said. "What?" As soon as Bei Yunj finished speaking, the man suddenly grabbed her wrist. Before she could react, the force on her wrist increased slightly. Then, the forward inertia caused her to fall directly into a warm and firm chest. The surrounding fragrance was getting stronger and stronger, making one's heart palpitate. Hoshidu felt his heart beating faster, and his thin red lips curled up slightly. His pale-colored pupils were devoid of desire, but the corners of his upturned eyes were seductive, especially at this moment. His lazy and frivolous eyes carried a gentle ambiguity, ostentatious and seductive. So that's how it is. Bei Yunj was still confused. She only heard the man's laughter and his low and magnetic voice as he muttered to himself. "Brother, what did you say?" Bei Yunj's ears went soft. Seeing that Hoshidu had let go of her slightly, she asked again. Unexpectedly, the man only looked at her for a while before reaching out to pinch her cheek. He chuckled happily. "It's nothing. You'll know when you get older." Bei Yunj, why did she feel that this man was very strange today? Suddenly, just as they walked into the parking lot, the man asked, "Yunyun, do you have a university that you like?" "No." Bei Yunj did not hesitate. "Then what about Yun University?" Hoshidu asked slowly. Bei Yunj looked at him instinctively and did not speak. Yunqing University was the best school in the country. However, she had always thought that Hoshidu allowed her to choose a school. 2K Then Hoshidu turned to look at her. His deep and lazy voice sounded again. "I want you to stay in Yuncheng." The corners of his lips curled up, and he dragged his voice as if he was deliberately seducing her. He could easily bewitch her. "So, Yunyun, work hard for me, okay?" At the Computing Institute. The man at the door sat helplessly on the ground, his eyes empty. Ji Yiqing didn't know how to comfort him. "Boss, will you really be all right?" The man's voice was hoarse and he could not help but gently press his sore eyes with the base of his palm. He was the third spy in Ji Yiqing's mission. But he didn't expect that the group of people would find his wife of a year and take her away yesterday. "Bao, we will find sister-in-law." Ji Yiqing patted his shoulder to comfort him. But in fact he wasn't sure either. After all, no one could imagine what those people could do. Female hostages were often more dangerous than male hostages. In the research lab, the family of the undercover agent was kidnapped. This is too difficult to control." Zhong Shenglin subconsciously took a deep breath. Bei Yunj sat in front of the computer. After a while she said, "Let the spy in. I have something to tell him." Guh. Zhong Shenglin frowned subconsciously. Actually, Zhong Shenglin did not want Bei Yunj to interfere out of selfishness. After all, that was not Bei Yunj's responsibility. As a scientific researcher, it was difficult for him to predict how much Bei Yunj could push the country's computing field forward in the future. Therefore, he did not want Bei Yunj to take the risk. "Elder Zhong, don't worry. I'll be fine." Chapter 375. But who would have thought that the next moment, they heard Zhong Shenglin speak. "I'm looking for you. You can go in alone." Zhong Shenglin looked at Bao and said. When Ji Yiqing heard this, he also understood that her identity was confidential. Ordinary people could not see her. "Go ahead." Ji Yiqing patted Bao's shoulder. Bao wiped the corners of his eyes and quickly composed himself. He nodded and stood up. "Okay." At the door. Bao knocked on the door and slowly walked in. He called softly, "Miss?" Suddenly, "Come here." A young and clear voice sounded, which surprised Bao. But what surprised him even more was that the girl in front of him was unbelievably beautiful. He would never have thought that such a girl would be, "Miss?" Bao was a little uncertain. Bei Yunj glanced at him and smiled. "Have a seat. I have something to ask you." Bao sat down a little cautiously. "Okay. How do you usually contact them?" Bei Yunj's question confused Bao. "When I went undercover, I didn't get through to the internal department. Usually it's only them who contact me." After Bao finished speaking, he couldn't help but ask carefully, "Why are you asking about this?" "A few days ago, I destroyed the computer that they usually use. Now I can't talk to them," Bei Yunj said casually. "Bao, maybe they don't really want to talk to you." Not long after, Bao remembered that a group of people used human organs to threaten Bei Yunj some time ago. He probably didn't expect to provoke someone who was so vengeful. "Miss, can you save my wife?" Bao lowered his head and unconsciously clenched his fists. He also didn't expect that there would be a day when he would need someone to save him. Bei Yunj looked at him and didn't answer this question. They will contact you. Wait for a while. What? Abao asked. Bei Yunj played with the fountain pen in her hand. Her lowered eyes couldn't see her emotions. Because they are afraid. Bei Yunj could break into their computer through a chip that was being monitored. They should have known better that she might have taken away all the data on the computer. They wanted to take hostages to change the situation. A few days later, when Bei Yunj returned to Hengda, she found that a large group of people often gathered outside. Master Pei, what are you looking at? On the way, they bumped into Bei Yunj's Lu Yuanxi, who patted her on the shoulder. Bei Yunj glanced at Lu Yuanxi before looking away. Hengda is in debt. At first, Lu Yuanxi did not understand what Bei Yunj meant until he saw the young fans around him. They were like a group of debt collectors. What are you talking about, Master Pei? This year, the Qin family donated a building because of you. With you around, Hengda will not fall, Lu Yuanxi said gently. Bei Yunj, Lu Yuanxi stopped joking. Those people are Qin Yojiao's fans. Don't you know that she has entered the entertainment industry? I don't know. Bei Yunj was not interested in Qin Yojiao's matters. I heard that she's only the female lead of a music video, but the singer is quite popular and everyone likes this music video, so she has a wave of fans. Lu Yuanxi had seen other boys watch Qin Yojiao's music videos many times. It had to be said that Qin Yojiao had the face of a first love. It was a face that straight men could not resist. Deskmate, why don't you enter the entertainment industry too? Your second brother's music video might become even more popular. Chapter 376. Lu Yuanxi started to come up with bad ideas. However, with Bei Yunj's looks, she did have the capital to become famous in the entertainment industry. Even Qin Yojiao's face, which was that of her first love, would look plain next to Bei Yunj. It's too troublesome. Bei Yunj said slowly. Lu Yuanxi, who already knew that Bei Yunj was lazy, was not surprised. However, before Lu Yuanxi could speak, Teacher Wen's anxious voice could be heard not too far away. Bei Yunj, why are you still here? Didn't you see the notice I sent you? Do you have to go to Yun University today? Bei Yunj asked in return. Yun University? Yes, the few of you who won prizes in the physics competition can follow the lead teacher to visit Yun University. If you perform well, the chances of independent enrollment next year will be higher. Hearing Teacher Wen say this, Lu Yuanxi, who was beside him, finally felt the difference between him and his desk mate. Just a few days ago, they were desk mates who had been scolded together. Now, his desk mate had become a top student and he was the only one struggling alone in the sea of learning. Now, Bei Yunj furrowed her eyebrows unconsciously. Yes, the school bus is waiting for you. Let's hurry. With that said, Teacher Wen pushed Bei Yunj towards the school bus in the distance. Seeing this, Lu Yuanxi's eyelids twitched unconsciously. His determination to study hard and catch up to Bei Yunj became even stronger. Outside the school bus. Principal, are we really bringing Bei Yunj over? But Bei Yunj's results. She did not know if it was true or not. The lead teacher was reluctant, afraid that Bei Yunj would embarrass Hengda and embarrass her. What can we do? The second, third, and sixth place are all going. Are you going to let the first place not go? The principal smiled insincerely. 516 now, he was the one who was most worried about what would happen. If Bei Yunj could admit that she had cheated at the award ceremony last time, it would not affect Hengda too much. But now, if Bei Yunj was slapped in the face at Yun University and found out that she was not up to standard, Hengda's enrollment rate would be affected. These top universities hated students who cheated the most. They also hated schools that taught such students. At this moment, the principal only hoped that Bei Yunj would be sick today. But in the next second, the principal saw Teacher Wen happily pulling Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj's bright and beautiful face did not look happy, but Teacher Wen was really happy. Then I'll leave Bei to you, Teacher Han. Teacher Wen was like an old with a cheering with. This was with the only with them with her with. Bei Yunj to her. Seeing this, after Yunj, of course, it. Mean the school bus, when Qing Zihuai and the rest saw that Bei Yunj had actually come, their expressions did not look too good. The winners of this year's physics competition were usually the top students who thought they were better than others. But there was an accident. The famous Bei Yunj from class 7 got first place. How dare she come? A girl who happened to be in 10th place glanced at Bei Yunj jealously and couldn't help but say sharply. For this physics competition, she had stayed up late for a month to do questions just to get a place. But what about Bei Yunj? Who would believe that she didn't get this award through connections? Chapter 377. Cheng Zihuai clenched his fists, the veins on the back of his hands popping out, but his handsome face did not lose his composure. Seeing that Cheng Zihuai was ignoring her, the girl sat aside awkwardly. At this moment, Leia and Qin Youjiao, who were in front, also had their own thoughts. Yaya, do you want to eat some? Qin Youjiao took out a box of biscuits and asked. Leia's lips moved and she stared at her intently. Aren't you angry that Bei Yunj took first place? Qin Youjiao's hand froze. Soon she hid the gloominess in her eyes and smirked. Why should I be angry? If she really did it with her ability, it's useless for me to be angry. Then, Leia was about to refute when she heard Qin Youjiao continue to giggle. Her tone was slightly cold. But if it wasn't for, if she dared to come today, would you be afraid that she wouldn't expose herself? Qin Youjiao's voice was very soft and only Leia could hear it. What do you mean? Leia could not help asking again. There's an exchange competition at Yun University today. We should go and take a look. Qin Youjiao deliberately observed Leia's expression and caught a flash of light in her eyes. Seeing this, she smirked and said nothing more. Bei Yunj was indeed bold. She was not afraid to barge into a place where academic experts gathered. So, the school bus stopped at Yun University. Everyone got out of the bus one by one and could not help looking around. Although Hongda High School was already the most stylish high school in the city, it still paled in comparison to such a top university. The teacher in charge turned around and saw several students with expectant expressions. She smiled. You're all the top students in Hongda. It's actually not that difficult to enter Yun University. Qin Youjiao and the rest noticed that the teacher in charge paused halfway and her tone became stiff because of Bei Yunj. Don't worry, Teacher Han. We'll work hard. Qin Youjiao smiled. The teacher in charge nodded and the teacher from the admissions office brought them around Yun University. Suddenly, Leia could not help but ask, is there a competition at Yun University today? The teacher from Yun University was stunned for a moment before he said with a smile, it seems like you're quite concerned about Yun University. Right. Indeed, there is an exchange competition today. It's the mathematics department's exchange competition. Which school are you competing with? Another person asked curiously. To be able to compete with Yun University, it must be a top university. The teacher's expression froze. It's Neely University. After saying this, the others subconsciously sucked in a breath of cold air. Neely University was the top school in our nation and also the top school in the world. Moreover, his ace major was mathematics. The air froze. Not long after, Cheng Zihuai asked, can we go and take a look? Of course you can. However, the participants are all juniors and seniors. You might find it boring. His words were very tactful. He was probably trying to say that they probably wouldn't understand it either. It's okay. A dark light flashed across Cheng Zihuai's eyes. In fact, until now, Cheng Zihuai was still hesitating whether to apply for computer science or mathematics. After all, his talents in both fields were recognized as good. Alright, I'll take you there. The teacher from Yun University nodded and didn't really care. Subsequently, when they entered a hall, they found 30 to 40 students sitting in front of them. Among them, more than 10 to 20 blonde students were especially eye-catching. Especially the proud expressions on their faces. Chapter 378. The moment Cheng Zihuai and the others entered, they felt that the atmosphere was not right. When the teachers of Yun University saw their students' solemn and ugly expressions, they immediately knew what was going on. Neely University's mathematics department could be said to be domineering. In recent years, the students had been especially outstanding. In the past 10 years, Yun University had only produced Luo Qingshu, who crushed Neely University's mathematics department. What's going on? Aren't you going to answer the questions? The teacher lowered his voice, his tone a little angry. I've already sent someone to look for Jianxi, but I don't know where she went. Hearing the students say this, the teacher could not help but press the space between his eyebrows. Now, Yun University was relying on Jianxi alone to regain their face. In the previous physics department debate competition, Jianxi was also the one who controlled the entire scene. However, Jianxi's temper was not good. They could look for her once, but if they did it too many times, she would ignore them completely. Where's Jianxi? Has anyone seen Jianxi? The teacher flew into a rage on the spot and asked in the group chat. However, there was no trace of Jianxi at all. 10 minutes later, The other students from other schools who had won the physics competition also came, but the teachers of Yun University were still in a rage, looking for Jianxi. Leia, who was in the back row, could not help but ask, "Is this Jianxi very powerful?" Unexpectedly, Cheng Zihuai spoke. "Yes, she's a freshman at Yun University. She got first place in the computer department and skipped a grade." These words made several people unable to help but feel envious. Skipped a grade? Didn't that mean she was as old as them? Moreover, this exchange competition was for the 3rd and 4th years, but everyone was waiting for a freshman to save the day. This was too powerful. "Where's Jianxi? Have you guys gone to the computer department to look for her?" The teacher was so anxious that his head was about to explode. "We've looked for her. She's not here." The student who ran over panted. "This bad girl is definitely going against me." Yun University's teacher's face was almost distorted. She must have remembered that she was late last time. Is there a need for that? The students were speechless. If they had known this would happen, they would not have done it in the first place. In the back row, Bei Yunja's eyebrows twitched as she sent a message. "Where are you?" In less than a minute. Jianxi, playing games in the dormitory / Jianxi, teacher, what's wrong? Bei Yunj thought for a moment and continued to send her messages. "Do you feel like you've forgotten something?" Jianxi, yes. Jianxi, I forgot to miss teacher YGG today. Shy. Bei Yunj, at this moment. Bei Yunj listened to Professor Yun talk about Jianxi's cruel deeds while complaining about how hard it was to be Jianxi's teacher. Every time he called Jianxi up to answer a question, Jianxi would throw him a puzzled look that said, "How can you ask such a question?" This made him deeply doubt his teaching standards. Sometimes a teacher would break down in an instant. "I can't do anything about it. What if she finds fault with me during class?" Yun University's teacher was on the phone with the school's leader. He chuckled. "Respect my teacher? Are you sure who Jianxi treats as her teacher?" He must have had 8 lifetimes of bad luck to be Jianxi's teacher. Bei Yunj, who was listening and watching Jianxi's bombardment of messages, was speechless. At this moment, suddenly Cheng Zihuai stood up and said in a gentle and steady voice, "Teacher, can I solve it the first time?" Chapter 379. Hearing this, Teacher Yun was stunned for a moment and looked at Cheng Zihuai. "You?" Even an ordinary third-year student of Yun University would find it difficult to solve these questions. A third-year student from Hengda could solve it? At this moment, a student from Neely University waved casually and smiled lazily and confidently. "If anyone knows how to do it, you can go up and do it." Teacher Yun's expression did not look too good, but he could only nod in agreement. "Then go and try it." Under everyone's gaze, Cheng Zihuai went up to look at the questions for a while. The corners of his lips curled up as he picked up the chalk on the table. Everyone was curious, wanting to know if this person could really solve it. At the same time, Bei Yunj received another message from Jianxi. "Jianxi, teacher, where are you now?" Bei Yunj lowered her eyes and replied to the message. "Your school's conference hall." "Jianxi? Sigma?" "Oh." Jianxi, who was playing dungeons in the dormitory, did not hesitate. She immediately picked up the small flower umbrella and ran out. Seeing this, her roommate, who was paralyzed on the bed, sat up in shock. "Jianxi, where are you going?" "I'm going to find someone." Those who did not know better would think that she had gone to see her idol. In the conference hall, Cheng Zihuai put down the chalk and smiled warmly and generously. "Teacher, I'm done." As soon as he finished speaking, the 10 to 20 students in front could not help but observe Cheng Zihuai's steps carefully. Then they were stunned. Someone exclaimed, "He really did it." It was not only the students from Yun University. Even the students from Neely University did not look too good after seeing Cheng Zihuai's solution. Reading website. Someone actually solved it. Hearing these discussions, Cheng Zihuai only smiled and walked down the stage naturally. Teacher Yun looked impressed. "Student, what's your name?" "Cheng Zihuai, a third-year student from Hengda." Hearing this, Teacher Yun nodded and sighed. "Your future is limitless. Your future is limitless." He was only in his 3rd year of high school and already had such standards. It was indeed incredible. The mathematics department professor, who had been watching from the side as a judge, could not help but look at Cheng Zihuai with bright eyes. This was also a talented person. The mathematics department professor took note of Cheng Zihuai's name and appearance, preparing to recruit him next year. Below the stage there was also a commotion. Especially the girls, when they saw that Cheng Zihuai was handsome and was a top student, their hearts pounded. He's so handsome and has such a high IQ. That's of course. Hungda's top student, do you think it's a joke? Another girl said sneakily, also he's a rich second-generation heir. His family is super rich. Isn't this the norm for the male lead of a school novel? I love it. But speaking the competition? Oh. Someone. Then, She smiled awkwardly and braced herself to continue watching the match. She knew it. She should not have brought Bei Yunj this time. Did she think that Bei Yunj had not embarrassed Hungda enough? Chapter 380. The next moment. The student representative of Neely University stood up and looked at Cheng Zihuai sharply. You're very capable. Cheng Zihuai was fluent in English and his attitude was neither servile nor overbearing. It's just a coincidence. Is that so? The boy from Neely University smiled again. Although you answered this question correctly, Yun University's score is still a lot lower than ours. If you want to catch up, you have to at least catch up with us by 7 questions. Neely University's mathematics department was after all a trump card. Yun University was indeed about to lose badly in this exchange competition. If your school agrees, I'm willing to be a substitute for the seniors of Yun University. Cheng Zihuai's humble words made the seniors, who had been slapped in the face by a third-year student, look better. Their impression of him also improved. Up to you. It doesn't matter who you substitute. The blond boy sneered and gestured for his people to change the question. Seeing the attitude of the Neely University students, the others did not look too good. Yun University was the top university in Country A. Now that they were being looked down on by the students of Country R, they were also provoking Country A's academics. What's there to be proud of? Student Cheng might even be able to do it. That's right. Neely University is superior to others? The students in the back rows who knew nothing about Neely University's mathematics said disdainfully. However, the students of Yun University's exchange competition had grave expressions and were about to break down. All these years, Neely University's mathematics department had indeed been crushing Yun University. They indeed had the right to be arrogant, soon. 2 new questions were written on the blackboard. This made the originally calm Cheng Zihuai's expression darken as he clenched his fists subconsciously. Even the mathematics department professor of Yun University could not keep his expression straight. Meanwhile, the mathematics department professor of Neely University smiled confidently. Suddenly. Then do any of you know these 2 questions? The blond boy turned his head and curled his lips. A dark look flashed across his eyes. Trending searches, it was obvious that Neely University had already started to bring out the final question. However, after Bei Yunj saw the question on the blackboard clearly, his gaze became intriguing and he snorted softly. No one noticed Bei Yunj's movement. Everyone's attention was focused on the question on the blackboard. The professor from the mathematics department of Yun University had a sullen expression on his face. He clenched his fists tightly. Even he might not be able to solve this problem within the allotted time. Classmate, can you continue? Neely's student clearly bore a grudge against Cheng Zihuai and deliberately asked him. Cheng Zihuai pursed his lips unconsciously. His expression did not look too good as he froze. This question he had no thoughts at all. It seems that none of you know how to do it. Neely's student said sarcastically. Suddenly, someone said, Student Cheng is only second in the competition. How about the first place try? Yes. Wasn't there still a competition for first place? You've already gotten first place, so why are you still hiding? A few students at the side began to chime in. When the teacher in charge heard this, he was so nervous that he almost died. He looked at Bei Yunj instinctively. But he didn't expect this ancestor to be so calm and composed, without the slightest bit of fear. Subsequently, Teacher Yun's eyes also looked at Bei Yunj, thinking about something. Suddenly, Qin Yug laughed coquettishly. Yes, Yunj, do you want to try? Don't be so petty. Why are you hiding it? Instantly. Chapter 381. Then, Bei Yunj only turned around, a faint smile on her face as she glanced at her calmly. There was no disdain in her eyes, but there was a lazy look in her eyes that said she could not be bothered with her. This made Qin Yojiao feel extremely disrespectful and she was even more furious. Qin Yojiao's smile froze and she continued to say softly, Yunj, don't tell me you can't understand what's written on it? However, the people in the back row heard everything clearly. The first place in the competition couldn't understand it? Even the second place could answer a question, but she couldn't even understand it? Instantly, everyone was very suspicious of Bei Yunj, the first place in the competition. What's the hurry? The person who knows how to do it is here. Bei Yunj said slowly. Hearing this, a trace of ridicule flashed past Qin Yojiao's eyes. Really? Even the teacher can't find someone who knows how to do the questions. Do you know who knows how to do it? Instantly. Someone couldn't help but mock. If you don't know, you don't know. Why are you looking for a reason? Is this first place in the competition real or fake? It's almost time to answer the questions. She said that someone knows how to do it now. Later, Yun University will lose 2 points to Li University. Is it her fault? The malicious criticism around them was endless. Even the students of Yun University could not help but turn around and glance at Bei Yunj, their eyes filled with disgust. Did a cheating student have the right to sit here? Seeing the situation on the stage, Qing Zihuai only glanced at Bei Yunj calmly before he continued to observe the question. After all, Bei Yunj deserved it and had nothing to do with him. At this moment, Qin Yojiao seemed to have vented her anger and asked with a smile, "Then if she didn't come, would you go up and answer the question?" Suddenly, a melodious female voice rang out. "Teacher?" Everyone turned around and saw a girl holding a flower umbrella. She looked very exquisite. Then, in the back row, She saw the figure of the person she was looking for. Her eyes lit up and she walked forward. Before she could finish her sentence, she was suddenly grabbed by the back of her collar. She stared at Bei Yunj pitifully, but she was directly dragged to the front row. "Jianxi, if you can make Yun University proud this time, we'll write off the matter of you being late and leaving early last time." Seeing that Bei Yunj was getting further and further away from her, Jianxi's expression turned ugly. "I don't want it. Teacher Yun, it would be great if he could strangle this guy to death with his own hands. If you go and help, I'll give you extra points." Jianxi asked, "What's the use of adding it?" First, there was no one else but her. Yunda's teacher took a deep breath. "Elective course exemption. How about it?" "Teacher, I think you should find someone else." Before Jianxi could finish speaking, the phone in her pocket suddenly vibrated. She subconsciously took it out to take a look. "YGG, give it a try. If you can do it, I'll take you to the maps of the gods' dungeon." Jane paused for a moment. Then, before Teacher Yun could continue persuading her, she suddenly looked up. "Teacher, I think I have to protect the honor of my alma mater." Teacher Yun was speechless. What was wrong with her now? However, this was just the right time. Everyone below the stage could not help but be curious as they watched Jianxi walk up the stage. The Jianxi that Teacher Yun had been talking about just now was this girl? Was she really that good? Chapter 382. His eyes were gloomy and the veins on the back of his hand popped out. Qing Zihuai could not figure out why he would rather accept a bad-tempered missy than choose him. At this moment, seeing Jianxi start writing the solution after looking at the questions for a while, the Neely University student froze and his expression turned ugly. There was actually a student from Yun University who could solve these 2 questions? Not only were the students from Neely University in disbelief, even the math department professor from Neely University was in disbelief. Which year is this student from? Professor Neely could not help but gasp. Year 1. Computer science student. The voice of the mathematics department professor from Yunhua University trembled slightly. Jianxi was a computer science student, right? He had just sorted out his thoughts for this question, but how did Jianxi solve it? Computer science? The Neely University professor's eyes almost popped out. How could a computer science student solve these questions? Then why didn't this student choose mathematics? Could it be that she was better at computing? The Neely University professor's expression was about to crack. Yes. The Yun University professor said faintly. Back then he could not beat those old men from the computer science department. However, Jianxi, who was doing the questions, was also a little confused. She wrote exceptionally smoothly. These questions seemed to have been given to her by her teacher before. After answering the first question, Jianxi, who was muttering in her heart, looked at the next question. She felt that this question was more like her teacher's handwriting. Although she was puzzled, Jianxi still quickly solved the second question. "I'm done." Jianxi put the chalk back and looked at the professors beside her. The Yun University professor suppressed the surging emotions in his heart and nodded calmly. "Yes, not bad." However, when he saw the 2 perfect solutions on the blackboard, The expression of the Neely University student representative changed and he stood up instinctively. How is this possible? Luan Nua, the Neely University professor shouted warningly. Hearing this, Luan Nua sat down again with an ugly expression. He grabbed the handle of the chair weakly as if he had suffered a blow. The Yun University professor could not help but stand up and walk to Jianxi's side. Where did you learn these questions from? Ah? My teacher taught me. Jianxi frowned and felt even more confused. Previously, her teacher had said that although she studied computer science, she had to be well-rounded. Therefore, she had to know a little about these basic questions. Otherwise, it would be embarrassing in the future. Your teacher? Yun University's professor was stunned. At the mention of her teacher, Jianxi's eyes lit up. She was obviously happy. Yes, my teacher is also a computer science major. Yun University's professor. Why would someone who majored in computer science have to teach students this level of mathematics? Only Cheng Zihuai's handsome face darkened when he heard this, and he felt upset in his heart. Others might not know who teacher Jianxi was, but he knew very well. If he had been the one to choose back then, Jianxi would not be the one standing in the limelight now. Cheng Zihuai gritted his teeth as an unknown anger rose in his heart. The Yun University professor put on a fake smile. What else does your teacher usually teach you? Mathematics, physics, and chemistry. I teach them occasionally. Jianxi added, you can even bring me to dungeons. Yun University's professor, where did this deity come from to subdue this little devil? P.S. Good boys remember to buy tickets. Chapter 383. Your teacher is really omnipotent. After hearing this, the professor of Yun University thought that Jianxi's family had found an incredible teacher for her. That's right, that's right. If not for the fact that the competition was still going on, the professor of Yun University would have thrown the fangirl-looking Jianxi out. Alright, then continue answering the questions. Don't embarrass your teacher. The professor of Yun University left as if he was escaping. Jianxi was speechless. For the next few questions, it was as if Jianxi had cheated. It was all her personal show time. When the mathematics department students saw this, their faces were almost numb. They even had a bold thought. Could it be that those who studied computer science were better at mathematics? However, on second thought, this was not right. Previously, during the physics exchange competition of Yun University, Jianxi was the one who controlled the entire competition. The mathematics department students were speechless. What kind of damnable existence was this? However, Jianxi suddenly stopped when she was 2 questions away from tying the score. This question looked a little familiar, but she did not know how to solve it. Seeing that Jianxi finally stopped writing, the gloomy Leonard heaved a sigh of relief. The corners of his lips curled up as he looked lazily at the hesitant girl on stage. This question was indeed not simple. However, he did not expect that someone from Yun University would be able to solve this question. At this moment, Jianxi hesitated for a moment and slowly wrote down the steps to answer the question. However, halfway through she could not continue. She pursed her lips and suddenly turned her head as if she was looking at someone. In the back row, a certain someone who met her gaze was speechless. After a while, Bei Yunj glanced at the question and was about to ask Jianxi to come down when she heard Leonard say deliberately, "It seems that the students of Yun University are only SOSO?" Hearing this, Jianxi's gaze turned cold as she looked at Leonard. Jian was reading. Immediately after. Before Jianxi could speak, a lazy voice sounded from the back row. So, are you going to solve the question yourself? As soon as he finished speaking, the atmosphere in the venue suddenly froze. Everyone subconsciously turned to look at Bei Yunj. They did not expect Bei Yunj to interrupt at this moment. A hint of panic flashed across Leonard's eyes, but it quickly disappeared. How can I not know the questions we came up with? Are you sure you came up with this question? The corners of Bei Yunj's lips curled up. Her beautiful and soul-stirring eyes carried a hint of confusion. Her lazy glance was enough to inexplicably frighten people. You, Leonard flushed. However, Qin Yojiao, who was in the back row, had her eyes turned cold as she sneered in her heart. What was Bei Yunj trying to do at this time? Even Jianxi could not do it. What ability did she have to mock the students of Neely University? However, just as everyone was having different thoughts, the professor from Yun University spoke. Professor Omar, this question shouldn't have been set by the students, and it shouldn't have been set by you, right? Everyone was confused. They didn't know what the Yun University professor meant. However, they saw that Professor Omar's face had also turned pale, and he did not explain anything. As far as I know, this seems to be an example in someone's academic thesis, the professor from Yun University continued in a deep voice. When everyone heard this, they fell into deep sighs and unconsciously began to discuss secretly. Not long after, someone exclaimed, "It's that thesis." In an instant, the atmosphere in the venue was like hot water in a pot, boiling. It was this person again? Chapter 384. Hearing this, the person who had exclaimed just now turned around and smiled slightly. At first I thought so too. Until last time, my senior brother's graduation thesis seemed to be about several major problems related to nonlinear functional analysis. He said that it would be difficult to make a breakthrough in the next 50 years. In the end, she published a major thesis in this area last month. The breakthrough was very comprehensive and my senior brother is preparing to rewrite it. Everyone was speechless. This sounded really tragic. That's nothing. Because of her, our computer science department's question bank has rewritten hundreds of questions this year. The students watching from the back row put on a fake smile. I wonder how many students will fail this year because of her. Yeah, this year's computer science students don't want to acknowledge anyone else. They only acknowledge her. After listening to the conversation between the two people in the back row, everyone felt an inexplicable chill run down their spines. What kind of god was this? However, Bei Yunj could hear the angry tone of the student just now. She glanced at them faintly before looking away quickly. This question indeed appeared because of... But that example question is different from the one we came up with. Professor Omar explained. Hearing this, the professor of Yun University also looked at the question on the blackboard seriously. He then turned on his phone and searched for the example question. He found that there was indeed a difference between the two questions. The professor of Yun University gave a fake smile. It's different. However, your school did think highly of our Yun University by getting the professor to come up with the questions personally for this exchange competition. Professor Omar's expression did not look good, but he could not refute. After all, in principle, teachers could not set questions for students. Suddenly, Leonard said, "Since the student on stage doesn't know how to answer, I wonder if the student in the back row is willing to come up and answer?" He stared at Bei Yunj gloomily. If it wasn't for her, no one would have guessed that this question was an imitation. However, hearing this, Jianxi could not help but glance at him with admiration before she fell silent. He really knew how to kick an iron plate. He even had to choose the hardest one. He imitated someone else's example question and even got the real person to answer it. His courage was really shocking. Seeing that Leonard seemed to be staring at Bei Yunj, Qin Youjiao, who was in the back row, suppressed the smile on her lips and remained silent. They were quietly waiting to see how Bei Yunj would embarrass herself in public. Under everyone's gaze, Bei Yunj said slowly, "I can't solve it." As soon as he finished speaking, many people's eyes were filled with mockery or disgust. However, before anyone could mock her, they saw the corners of her eyes curl up again. Her smile did not reach her eyes. Wrong question. How do you want to solve it? Hearing this, everyone was stunned. Wrong question? Soon someone sneered, saying that she got the questions wrong just because she doesn't know how to answer them. Where did Hengda get such an embarrassing student? Is this woman crazy because she wants to be in the limelight? How dare you say such things? I'm impressed. Where did this weirdo come from? The crowd continued to discuss. Leonard also snorted, thinking that Bei Yunj was ridiculous. Mistake? All of these questions have answers. Student, are you overconfident, or are all the students in country so confident? Instantly, the expressions of the other students from country present changed. However, Professor Omar suddenly stood up and smiled at Bei Yunj. Student, there won't be any mistakes in this question. Chapter 385. Seeing Bei Yunj openly questioning a professor from Nili University, Cheng Zihuai snorted and looked away. She's courting death. He did not know why this woman could always cause trouble. Qin Youjiao smiled as well, but the ridicule hidden in her eyes was self-evident. At this moment, "Professor, aren't you going to calculate it again?" Professor Omar was unhappy to be questioned like this and only maintained his smile. "If you think it's wrong, why don't you go on stage and try?" These words were also reminding Bei Yunj not to speak if she did not understand. After all, this question required a lot of calculations and he did not want to waste time. Who knew? Bei Yunj really stood up and walked slowly towards the stage, picking up the chalk on the table. Seeing this, a dark look flashed past Leia, who had been silent all this while. She asked unconsciously, "Does she really know how to do it?" Qin Yojiao chuckled. Yeah, others might have the ability, but it's impossible for Bei Yunj. At this moment, Bei Yunj glanced at the question and circled the wrong data and symbols. Then she started to write down the process of answering the questions unhurriedly. However, when Bei Yunj circled the first data, Professor Omar stood up instinctively and his expression changed. He trembled unconsciously and clenched his fists tightly. Soon, he hurriedly opened his briefcase and found the solution he had written back then. With this look, he realized that he had written the solution wrong, so he happened to get an answer. Suddenly, Professor Omar's expression changed and he looked up at the girl who was answering on stage. However, Bei Yunj wrote half of the blackboard and furrowed her eyebrows unconsciously. Then she tapped 6 dots impatiently and left an answer. Looking at this answer, Professor Omar's mind was in a mess for a moment. He did not know if Bei Yunj had written it right or wrong. On the other hand, but his answer just now was indeed wrong. At the same time, the professor from Yun University realized belatedly that there was a mistake in this question. But how did this girl recognize it at a glance? Omar, did she answer this question correctly? The professor from Yun University suppressed his shock and asked Professor Omar. Professor Omar turned his head. Why don't you do the math with me? Yun University's professor. He saw that the girl had saved a lot of steps and directly wrote down the answer. He thought that there was a special method to solve this problem so it wouldn't be too difficult. At this very moment, everyone saw that the two professors seemed to be recalculating this question, and they couldn't stop the shock in their hearts. So, the question just now was really wrong? It can't be? How is it possible to tell? Then what do you think our professor is doing now? Everyone, he seemed to be solving a problem. It wasn't just the students from Yun University who couldn't sit still. Even the students from Neely University didn't expect this to happen. Their professor made a mistake in the question, but it was pointed out by a young girl on the spot. Impossible, she must have guessed. Seeing this situation, Qin Yojiao could not help but grit her teeth and say. Leia's eyes darkened and she could not help but look at Bei Yunj, who was sitting beside Jian Shi. About 10 minutes later, with the cooperation of the two professors, they finally solved the answer. They looked up and found that the answer Bei Yunj had written was no different from theirs. At this moment, the two professors felt their scalps turn numb. Chapter 386. For a while, the two professors were a little speechless, but their eyes were filled with shock and disbelief. How could a high school student successfully solve such a question? At the thought of how Bei Yunj had impatiently drawn 6 dots on the blackboard and marked the final answer halfway just now, the two professors' eyebrows almost popped out. Her actions would really give people the illusion that the questions were not too difficult. Professor, is her answer correct? Leonard still insisted on asking. Then he glanced at Bei Yunj with a dark gaze. He did not believe that someone in Country A could solve such a question. What's more, even Professor Omar had a hard time solving this problem. Professor Omar heard this and came back to his senses, but his voice was still trembling. The answer is correct. For a moment, the entire venue fell into a strange cold atmosphere, then it quickly boiled over. What the hell? The two professors had just solved this question together for more than 10 minutes, but Bei Yunj went up to write for less than 5 minutes and came up with the correct answer? *CK. Didn't the people from Hongda just say that the first place in this competition was cheating? Then what's the situation now? It's too difficult to cheat, so they decided to use their strength? The students from the other high schools almost scolded, but they still had to maintain a smile on their faces. Was this a new way for Hongda to confuse their opponents? I heard that this is this year's dark horse. She jumped from the bottom to first place and broke the mentality of the other people in Hongda. Everyone. Wasn't this method too wild? After all, Hongda was the best high school in Yunqing. In the history of the top 40, if they wanted to be ranked higher, they had to grit their teeth and study hard. However, this person had suddenly won first place in the competition without saying anything. Who could withstand such a crazy operation? Not only the students from the other schools, even the lead teacher from Hongda, who felt embarrassed just now, trembled at this moment and looked at this scene in disbelief. Okay, so Bei Yunj was really at this level? Then why did she usually do like that? The lead teacher's mood was very complicated. If it was before, she would never believe that Bei Yunj won first place without the Qin family's help. Suddenly, Leonard's voice was sharp and cold. Looks like the students of Yun University aren't that good. Only 1 or 2 high school students are passable. As soon as he finished speaking, the expressions of the students and teachers of Country A turned ugly. Luan Nua's words were not only a slap to Yun University's face, but they were also mocking Country A's top university. Sure enough, he was hooting again the next moment. Or is Country A's academic standards starting to decline? Suddenly, a soft snicker from the front row caught everyone's attention. When Leonard saw that the commotion was caused by Bei Yunj again, his face quickly darkened. What do you mean? If you really think that Country A is not good enough, why are 7 out of the 10 questions from your school just now replicated? Bei Yunj looked at him calmly. His eyes were curved, but his gaze made people feel inexplicably guilty. You? Leonard's face turned pale. He did not expect to be poked in his sore spot in public. Out of these 10 questions, 7 of them were indeed derived from an academic thesis. Actually, the academic community of Neely University had been discussing this. It was as if he had appeared out of nowhere and shocked the entire academic circle. Chapter 387. This made it difficult for Country R's academic circle, who had always had a sense of superiority, to accept this reality. How did such a genius appear in Country A? Back then, as Marcus's good friend, the principal of Neely University had also hinted to Marcus to poach her to Country R. But who would have thought that this person's temper was simply unpredictable? She even turned a blind eye to Country R's goodwill. I'm sorry. My student was too rude. Suddenly, Professor Omar stood up and bowed to everyone. Seeing that Omar's attitude was good, the expressions of the others improved slightly. However, Luan Nua gritted his teeth and stared at Bei Yunj with dark eyes. It was his first time being slapped in public. And it was such an arrogant woman. Professor Omar turned around and asked Bei Yunj, "Do you like this student very much?" Bei Yunj said, "It's all right." Jian Shi, who was sitting beside him, forced herself to stop the smile on her lips. If you want to engage in scientific research in the future, why don't you consider our Neely University? With that said, Luan Nua turned around immediately, his tone filled with disbelief and disapproval. Professor? The professor of Yun University, who was drinking tea, was caught off guard and almost spat it out. The professor of Yun University was speechless. How could someone be so shameless as to poach someone so brazenly in front of others in another school? The students in the back seat were also excited. They never thought that they would be able to see the noble and cold Neely University poach someone personally in their lifetime. Omar, are you crazy? The professor of Yun University blocked Professor Omar's gaze and gave a fake smile. Professor Do, did your Yun University give this student an admission letter? Omar smiled and straightened his back, not feeling guilty at all. If not, then Neely University has one now. Professor Do rejected immediately. No. Dream on. Don't even think about it. Seeing the 2 famous schools fighting for students, the other students felt like their hearts were about to jump out of their chests. As for Qin Yojiao, her eyes darkened as she clenched her fists tightly, her nails almost sinking into her flesh. How could this be? Bei Yunj could solve a question that even Cheng Zihuai could not understand? Could it be that Bei Yunj had been pretending for so many years? Was she playing with them on purpose? Jiao Jiao, do you know that Bei Yunj knows this? Cheng Zihuai's handsome expression was ugly. He never thought that he would be defeated by Bei Yunj one day. Qin Yojiao bit her lip and smiled. I don't know much about her. But she's a very purposeful person. Cheng Zihuai thought about this for a long time before looking at the scene in front of him gloomily. He sneered, "What do you mean by having a strong motive? You're just vain." In order to make herself look like a genius, she has really worked hard for so many years. Hearing this, Qin Yojiao only smiled. Not too long later. Everyone of Cheng of Life C Professor, of Su of Professor of C of C of C of C. Professor C, why are you here? Professor Do was stunned at first. Then he tugged at Si Qingyan and sneered in exasperation. Professor C, you have to be careful during the next computer science exchange competition. Do you know? There's still such a shameless person in this world who dares to poach someone from my mathematics department in front of me? Everyone was speechless. He was using the fact that the professor from Country R didn't understand their language to scold him. Chapter 388. Si Qingyan had a bad feeling when he heard that. Who are you fighting for? Professor Do pointed at the person beside Jian Shi and said with a smile, "This student. How is it? Not bad, right?" In the next second, Si Qingyan and Bei Yunj exchanged glances. Bei Yunj was speechless. Si Qingyan was speechless. Si Qingyan's expression almost distorted. If this ancestor was poached into the mathematics department, wouldn't that old master in the institute whip him to death? Si Qingyan smiled gently. "Professor Do, don't be anxious. You have to think on the bright side. Maybe this student isn't interested in mathematics?" Professor Do was speechless. What kind of dog shit was he talking about? "Student Pei, tell me if you want to stay in Yunqing or go to our nation." Yunqing. The moment Bei Yunj finished speaking before Professor Do could be happy, he heard her continue, "But I want to study computing." In an instant, Professor Do froze and his smile froze. In the back row, Cheng Zihuai furrowed his eyebrows and looked at Bei Yunj with a cold and mocking gaze. Bei Yunj kept saying that she didn't like him at all. Then why did she enroll in computing? He never knew when Bei Yunj had such a hobby. Beside him, Qin Yojiao suddenly said, "Zihuai, you'll also choose computing, right?" Cheng Zihuai's eyes were filled with disdain as he looked away from Bei Yunj. "It seems like we're really fated," Qin Yojiao said with a smile. Until the end. When Professor Omar heard Bei Yunj's choice, he was still reluctant to let go of such a good seedling. Seeing that these two professors were finally willing to continue hosting the exchange competition, Si Qingyan turned around calmly. "Waidu," he instructed Bei Yunj, "don't come to the next computing competition." Bei Yunj was speechless. "How can I do that? Then what should I do?" Jianshi widened her eyes. If her teacher wasn't around, why would she participate in the competition? "What do you mean what to do? Do you know how difficult it is to deal with a computer professor at Herman University?" Si Qingyan smiled. He didn't want to be entangled by that person at all. Jianshi, the exchange competition ended. Hengda's school bus was very quiet. The girl who had been talking about Bei Yunj along the way didn't look too good either. She sat at the back of the group without saying a word. "Bei Yunj, were you at this level in the past?" the teacher asked stiffly. "More or less." Bei Yunj didn't try to hide it, but she wasn't interested in talking about it either. Seeing this, the teacher in charge could only nod his head silently and tactfully stopped asking. Until they returned to Hengda. The principal welcomed her excitedly and happily. "Teacher Han, you've worked hard today. It's my duty." The principal did not notice the expression of the teacher in charge and said with a smile, "I heard that the students in our school have been snatched by Nili University and Yunqing University." "Yes." The teacher's eyelids twitched, but he lowered his head even more. "Who is it?" The principal's face was radiant. The teacher in charge was silent for a moment before he looked up. However, the name he said made the principal's smile freeze. "Bei Yunj." After a long while, the principal's smile was a little stiff. Who are you talking about?" Chapter 389. The moment he finished speaking, the principal stood rooted to the ground. His mind was in a state of chaos. What? The person that Nili University and Yun University were fighting over was Bei Yunj? At this moment, the principal stared at Bei Yunj's departing figure and felt that this world was a fantasy. How could it be Bei Yunj? Because school was ending soon, Bei Yunj did not stay in the classroom for long before she prepared to leave school. Today there seemed to be fewer fans at the door. At the school gate, Qin Yojiao had just walked out of the door when she saw Mr. Qin's figure. A dark look flashed past her eyes and she quickened her steps. "Dad." Hearing this, Mr. Qin turned around instinctively. He did not expect to see Qin Yojiao. "Jiao." Mr. Qin looked awkward. Qin Yojiao held his hand and said with a coy smile, "Are you here to pick me up?" "I came to look for Guru today for something." Mr. Qin felt a little unnatural. He did not tell Qin Yojiao that he had come to Hengda today because he knew very well that Qin Yojiao and Bei Yunj did not have a good relationship. "Who knew?" Qin Yojiao suddenly asked. "Dad, are you here because Yunj got first in the competition?" Seeing that Qin Yojiao wanted to say something but stopped herself, Mr. Qin was a little stunned. "What did you say?" "I got first in the competition?" The Qin family knew Bei Yunj's results very well. After all, the Qin family was prepared to let Bei Yunj get in through the back door. "You don't know?" "That's true. Why would Yunj tell you?" "Eldest brother and the rest won't tell you either," Qin Yojiao said casually. These words unconsciously led Mr. Qin's thoughts. making him think that Bei Yunji's first place in the competition was done by Qin Luyan and the rest. On the Wei Chinese website. Ridiculous. Mr. Qin's expression did not look too good. Dad, what happened to you? Qin Yojiao said awkwardly, did I say something wrong? I didn't know you didn't know about this. Jiao Jiao, did you participate in this competition? Mr. Qin took a deep breath and asked. Yes, I got 6th place. This competition was really difficult. Hearing Qin Yojiao's words, Mr. Qin felt even more complicated and upset. Whether it was Ge or Jiao Jiao, they were both his daughters. But now, for Ge, Lu Yan was even willing to buy a place in the competition. He didn't care about Jiao Jiao's feelings at all. Jiao Jiao, your brother went overboard this time. Mr. Qin's brows twitched and he looked a little tired. It's okay. Big brother and the rest only like Ge now. Anyway, I'm not the biological daughter of the Qin family, so I can't blame anyone. At this moment, when Mr. Qin saw that Qin Yojiao was still suppressing her grievances and smiling at him, he blamed himself even more. Jiao Jiao, Dad will always treat you as his daughter. Mr. Qin reached out and caressed Qin Yojiao's head, his voice gentle. Unexpectedly, she met Bei Yunji's eyes the next moment. Seeing this, Bei Yunji's rosy lips curled up, but she walked away quickly. It was as if Father Qin was a complete stranger to her. This knowledge made Mr. Qin's body stiffen. Go, he shouted subconsciously. However, the figure in front of him didn't even look back as she got into the car and left. A strange glint flashed past Qin Yojiao's eyes, but her tone was gentle. Dad, Yunji's like this. She didn't do it on purpose. Hearing this, Mr. Qin could not understand why his daughter had become like this. In the car. Chapter 390. He saw that person from afar and even chased after her. However, Miss did not even turn back. Does it count? Bei Yunji leaned against the back seat lazily. No one knew if she was asking a rhetorical question or if she meant something else. Uncle Wang, let's go to the hospital first today. Bei Yunji glanced at the time and said. Okay, Mississippi. Uncle Wang immediately changed his route and said with a smile. He could tell that Miss Pei was a filial child. She would go to the hospital every 2 to 3 days. On the way, Huashidu called her. Brother? Bei Yunji flipped through the information in her hand and called out again. Yunyun, have you finished school? Hearing the man's words, Bei Yunji finally realized that Huashidu was waiting for her. After returning from the archery hall last time, the man had inexplicably higher expectations for her homework. Brother, I have to go to the hospital first today. Bei Yunji said. The man standing by the French window narrowed his pale-colored eyes lazily and stood with his back relaxed. Has Grandpa Qin recovered? Hearing this address, Bei Yunji felt that something was wrong. However, she still replied, I'm pretty good. These few days he even asked her to play the maps of the gods with him. That's good. Go ahead. Brother will fetch you back later. Okay. After hanging up the call, Bei Yunji suddenly thought of the hug at the entrance of the archery hall. There were no emotions mixed in it. It was the simplest hug. However, it made her feel inexplicably terrible. Bei Yunji's eyes darkened. At this moment, Huashidu also received another call. It was from Qin Yu. Very soon. Music Huashidu answered the call and asked calmly, What's wrong? Master Du, do you have time to come out for a gathering? I'll treat you. Qin Yu was also in the car. His ink-like arrogant and handsome eyes carried a casual smile. No need. Huashidu rejected him casually. However, Qin Yu said seriously, How can I do that? You've worked hard to take care of my sister during this period of time. How can I not show you any gratitude? Hearing this, Huashidu's hand that was flipping through the documents stopped. He sensed the other intention behind his words. During this period? The man tapped his fingers on the table and his eyes turned dark. That's right. We're bringing old master back today and we're also preparing to bring Gur back. At this point, Qin Yu was even more grateful to Huashidu. After all, I'm embarrassed to trouble you all the time. So let's have a meal together. Let me. Before he could finish his words, the call was suddenly hung up. Qin Yu's smile froze. In the president's office. Not long after, Zheng Su walked in and looked at the man in front of him. Master Du, what are your orders? Go get the car. We're going to the hospital now. Half an hour later, Bei Yunji stepped out of the elevator and pushed open the door of the ward. He saw that the ward had been cleaned up and was ready to leave at any time. Are you finally come? Old Master Qin's eyes lit up when he saw Bei Yunj. He immediately went forward to hold Bei Yunj's hand. However, Bei Yunj noticed that Qin Luyan and the other two were around. All of them were staring fixedly at her. Bei Yunj looked away calmly. Is Grandpa going back? It's about time. Let's go back. Old Master Qin was very happy to be held by Bei Yunj. Seeing that the old master did not even wait for his son when he saw his granddaughter, the brothers also remained silent. Chapter 391. At this moment, before Bei Yunj could speak, the man wearing gold-rimmed glasses beside her suddenly shouted, "Gua!" Bei Yunj was still very respectful in front of old Master Qin. Oh? Bei Yunj turned to look at him. Grandpa's health is still not very good. Do you want to go back to the old mansion and stay with Grandpa for a while? Qin Luyan's low and calm voice was filled with an imperceptible gentleness. When Qin Yu and Qin Lang saw this, they could not help but want to give their eldest brother a thumbs up. As expected of their eldest brother. Knowing that Gur was most worried about the old master, he used the old master to coax her home first. Old Master Qin also looked at his eldest grandson hesitantly, his face full of question marks. Who was Lu Yan talking about? His health isn't very good? Bei Yunj frowned. Qin Luyan said, although he has just recovered from a serious illness, Grandpa still needs to recuperate for a while. If Gu-er can accompany him, Grandpa will recover faster. Old Master Qin, who had just despised his eldest grandson for using him to lie, immediately had his eyes light up. Yes, Gu-er, you've been back for 2 years and Grandpa has been staying in the hospital. I've never enjoyed the joy of family. With that said, Old Master Qin coughed violently again, looking extremely weak. Qin Yu and Qin Lang were perplexed. Was his grandson not worthy of having a name? Then, before Bei Yunj could speak, a low voice sounded not far away. Yun Yun. Bei Yunj was stunned for a moment, before she turned around and saw Huashidu and Seng Su walking towards her. Brother, why are you here? Hearing this address, the Qin brothers felt like their hearts had been stabbed. It seemed like Gur had never called them brother in the past month or so. I heard that Grandpa Qin was discharged from the hospital and brought some supplements over. Huashidu was good-looking and his ability was recognized by the older generation. After seeing Huashidu a few times, Old Master Qin naturally liked him. Look, even Shidu is more attentive than all of you. Hearing this, the man's lips curled up imperceptibly and his tone was light. It's only right. Before Qin Yu could sense anything, Qin Luyan and Qin Lang felt that there was a deeper meaning to these words. But soon she saw Old Master Qin enthusiastically pulling Huashidu downstairs. Let's go. Shidu should be free today, right? Why don't you and Grandpa Qin go back to the old mansion for a meal? If Grandpa Qin doesn't mind me disturbing you, of course I'm happy to. This was the first time Seng Su, who was at the back, saw his master do being so modest. He almost thought that he was dreaming. Bei Yunj also had an illusion. Her brother seemed to be trying to build a good relationship with her grandfather. On the way back to the Qin family's old mansion, Old Master Qin and Bei Yunj got into Huashidu's car. Over here. The 3 men of the Qin family were silent. You, how did you meet President Hua? Qin Luyan asked. Qin Yu said, we were high school classmates and have always been brothers. So, you're not worried about letting Gur stay in a stranger's house? Qin Luyan felt that Huashidu's attitude towards Gur or the old master was too amiable. It did not seem like the rumored president of the Hua Corporation at all. Sai, you've been worried 700 or 800 times. Qin Yu could not help but laugh. Don't worry. I've never seen him like anyone since high school. Where did our Gur get the ability to warm up such an iceberg? Chapter 392. One had to know that when he played basketball with Huashidu in the past, half of the girls in the field had come to see Huashidu. Qin Luyan did not speak, but a dark look flashed past his eyes. He still wanted to get Gur back as soon as possible. No matter who he handed Gur to, he would not be at ease. Back at the old mansion, Bei Yunj and Huashidu accompanied the old master and walked in front. But in the next second, when Old Master Qin looked up and saw the familiar figure in the living room, his smile froze. It was Qin Yojiao. However, Old Master Yun and Yun Nuo were sitting beside him. I heard last night that Jiao Jiao passed the International Musicians Association's preliminary audition. Is this true? A trace of admiration flashed past Old Master Yun's eyes. It had to be said that Qin Yojiao was the most outstanding in this socialite circle. It's just the preliminary audition. Qin Youjiao smiled. Beside her, Mrs. Qin could not stop smiling when she heard old Master Yun's praise. It's impressive that you can pass the preliminary audition. The International Musicians Association has never recruited anyone from our country, eh? Old Master Yun sighed. Back then he was also lucky enough to meet people from the International Musicians Association. They were all people who chatted and laughed with the top celebrities in the world. The moment he finished speaking, Old Master Yun and the rest noticed Old Master Qin and the rest. However, when Yun Nua saw Bei Yunj, a trace of sarcasm flashed past her eyes. Yes, how can ordinary people reach the International Musicians Association? Yun Nua laughed deliberately and her words sounded a little ear-piercing. Compared to some people who can only be reincarnated into a good family, Jiao Jiao is much better. With that said, 228 Literature Network Yun Nua did not notice that the expressions of the people walking over had darkened. Only Bei Yunj glanced at Yun Nua with a faint smile and suddenly laughed. Yun Nua's expression changed as if she had been provoked. What are you laughing at? Bei Yunj's voice was lazy. Nothing. Does Miss Yun still want to drink tea? These words sounded hospitable, but Yun Nua remembered how Bei Yunj had splashed hot tea over her head last time. Yun Nua's eyes turned red as she gritted her teeth. You, then, she sneered again. Miss Pei is really intolerant. Jiao Jiao has been in the Qin family for 19 years. Isn't she more like the eldest daughter of the Qin family than you? At this moment, Old Master Yun didn't say anything, silently agreeing with Yun Nua's words. In the end, his old friend was blinded by blood. So what if her granddaughter wasn't her biological granddaughter? Qin Youjiao had even passed the preliminary examination of the International Musicians Association. Was this still far from winning glory for the Qin family? As for the new daughter, the Qin family had been embroiled in a storm because of her. What could she bring to the Qin family? However, what Old Master Yun didn't expect was that Old Master Qin would actually get angry. Miss Yun, if you don't want to be a guest of the Qin family, you can leave early. Looking at Old Master Qin's cold face, Yun Nua also panicked. The Yun family and the Qin family had been on good terms for so many years, and Old Master Qin had always been very gentle to her. However, this was the first time his tone was so cold and distant. Yun Nua felt wronged. I didn't mean that. Old Qin, why are you angry with the younger generation? Old Master Yun laughed, a trace of sharpness in his cloudy eyes as he glanced at Bei Yunj. She was indeed scheming to coax Old Master Qin to this extent. Who knew? Old Master Qin slapped Old Master Yun's hand away and said with a dark expression. Stop trying to smooth things over. No outsider has the right to interfere in our Qin family's matters. Chapter 393. Before anyone could speak, Qin Luyin's voice sounded. Why is Miss Qin here? The moment Qin Youjiao met Qin Luyin's eyes, she felt inexplicably afraid. Brother? Qin Youjiao bit her lip and said pitifully, don't chase me away, okay? Seeing this, Old Master Yun thought of Mrs. Qin's request just now and interrupted. The child specially came to welcome Old Qin. There's no need to be so distant. Even if they're not biological, they still have feelings for each other. At this moment, Qin Luyin smirked, his tone gentle and polite. However, his words made Old Master Yun's expression turn ugly. Old Master Yun is so tolerant. Why aren't you willing to bring your third son's illegitimate son home? After all, he's your biological son. Old Master Yun's expression changed when his scar was exposed in public. He was so angry that he almost trembled. What did this have to do with him? However, hearing Qin Luyin's words, Old Master Qin was amused. He said gently on purpose, Yes, Old Yun, your blood flows in the child's body. Aren't you a beast if you don't even look at her? With that said, Mrs. Qin's face also turned pale. She had a feeling that Old Master Qin was deliberately hinting at someone. Old Master Yun's face flushed red. He did not expect to be provoked by his good friend. Usually, Old Master Qin knew about this, but he never interfered in other people's family matters, so he would at most ask indirectly. But now, Old Master Yun had angered the entire Qin family. How could he not be criticized? I'll go and send Miss Qin out, Qin Luyin said. However, the moment Mrs. Qin heard this, she immediately stood in front of Qin Youjiao. Why should Jiao Jiao leave? If it was anyone else in the Qin family, they would not be able to deal with Mrs. Qin's pestering. She must love reading. However, Qin Luyin was an exception. Qin Luyin said calmly, Mom should have eaten too. Send her out too. Qin Luyin, Mrs. Qin was furious. She never thought that she would give birth to such an unfilial son. Suddenly, Mr. Qin, who had come downstairs, frowned. Lu Yen, is this your attitude towards your mother? Unexpectedly, old Master Qin said faintly, why? Are you going to scold Lu Yen in front of me? Do you think you're so great just because you're me? Mr. Qin was taken aback. Dad, no, that's not what I meant. Then what do you mean? If you don't want to be a member of the Qin family, then scram. This old man's death has nothing to do with you. Old Master Qin roared angrily. In an instant, the atmosphere in the arena was silent. Old Master Yin didn't expect Old Master Qin to be like a barrel of explosives. Because of the Beiyunj incident, it was easy to explode. Even Qin Youjiao saw Old Master Qin's dark expression. For a moment, he didn't dare to plead for leniency on his behalf. Grandpa, calm down. Go sit down first. Beiyunj saw that the old man was trembling with anger and tried to comfort him. My girl is still the filial one. The old man's complexion improved slightly, and he followed Beiyunj to sit on the sofa. At this time, only then did the two men from the Yun family notice the other man beside the old man. President Hua? Why are you here? Old Master Yin froze. He had been too concerned about the Qin family's grandchildren just now and did not notice that the person standing beside Old Master Qin was actually Hua Shidu. When did the Qin family get close to the Hua family? Chapter 394. Hearing this, Yun Nuo looked at Hua Shidu in disbelief. Why was Hua Shidu related to Beiyunj? Yun Nuo instantly had mixed feelings, but she could not figure out how Beiyunj was worthy of these people's favor. Miss Pei? Old Master Yun caught the main point. Hua Shidu glanced at Beiyunj carelessly before he smirked. The young lady is very lovable. At this moment, because of Hua Shidu's words, Old Master Yun's expression froze. He started to suspect if he had stood on the wrong side from the start. If Beiyunj could have a good relationship with this person from the Hua family, so what if Qin Youjiao entered the International Musicians Association? I really didn't expect Miss Pei to know President Hua. Old Master Yun's expression froze. But no matter how he thought about it, he could not understand why President Hua was so concerned about Beiyunj. Could it be because of Beiyunj's face? Although he had seen many beauties in his life, he had to admit that the face of this real young lady of the Qin family was the most stunning and unforgettable. At this moment, Mrs. Qin did not want all the topics to revolve around Beiyunj, so she immediately interrupted. Dad, haven't you always liked Teacher Du Xiao? This time, Teacher Du Xiao agreed to come to our house for a meal. Teacher Du Xiao is coming to our place. Hearing this, Old Master Qin furrowed his eyebrows. It was rumored that Du Xiao had always been arrogant and did not go to any dinner parties. Yes, Teacher Du Xiao likes Jiao Jiao quite a lot. Mrs. Qin deliberately gave Qin Youjiao a good impression. However, how could Old Master Qin not see through Mrs. Qin's intentions? Then why are you coming to our Qin family? Old Master Qin's tone was cold. The smile on Mrs. Qin's face disappeared and she could only retreat in order to advance. Dad, if you really don't want to see Jiao Jiao, I promise that Jiao Jiao will never disturb you again. Carefree Book Network IV already invited Teacher Du Xiao over this time. Just treat it as the last time you're giving Jiao Jiao face. Hearing this, Old Master Qin could not help frowning, his heart wavering. After all, he had indeed watched Qin Youjiao grow up. But if he agreed, what would Ge think? Suddenly, Beiyunj said leisurely, let him do it. Old Master Qin was stunned. Are you, Beiyunj? I've seen him before. You know Teacher Du Xiao too? Old Master Qin was surprised. Yes. Yesterday, Du Xiao had even sent her a message asking if they could have dinner together tonight. However, she was just in time to pick up Old Master Qin from the hospital, so she refused. As for Promise Clouds, when he heard this, he could not help but laugh mockingly. He was slapping himself in the face to look impressive. Just because he had met Mr. Du Xiao once, he thought that he was Mr. Du Xiao's friend? Mr. Du Xiao had met so many people, but had he ever bothered with anyone? Yun Nuo could not understand how the daughter of the Qin family could be so stupid, unlike the three sons of the Qin family at all. But that's fine too. When Teacher Du Xiao came, she would know that she was no match for Jiao Jiao. Mom, you don't want to know my methods, do you? A faint mocking look appeared in Mrs. Qin's eyes as she said, Teacher Du Xiao likes Jiao Jiao a lot and even praised her for being someone great in the future. This time, I also want to ask Teacher Du Xiao if he's willing to take Jiao Jiao as his student. Of course he's willing. Don't worry, Mrs. Chin. After all, she's the young female pianist that the nation has personally conferred upon her, Yun Nua said with a smile as her eyes swept over Bei Yunj. However, Chapter 395. Big brother went on a business trip and brought you a lot of gifts. With that said, Qin Lu reached out and gave Bei Yunj a key. This is the key to the safe. You can set the password for the safe yourself. Hearing this, Bei Yunj furrowed her eyebrows calmly. Isn't it too expensive? Usually, most of the things in the safe were gold, silver, and jewelry. However, with old Master Qin around, she could not reject him. No. Qin Luyan's good-looking eyes turned gentler as he said word by word, after all, Ger is the only elder young miss of the Qin family. With that said, Qin Yojiao's expression changed and Mrs. Qin's eyes were filled with resentment. Why was even Qin Luyan interfering in Bei Yunj's matters? Big brother is right. No one has the right to criticize the elder young miss of the Qin family. Qin Yu, who was beside her, sneered. Qin Lang was unwilling to fall behind. Third brother bought you a lot of gifts too. Why didn't he think of using the safe directly? It made him think for a long time about how to get so many jewelry. This was not like a club member who could just use a sack to store gifts. Thank you. A dark look flashed past Bei Yunj's eyes, but she was thinking about how to repay these things. At this moment, Mr. Qin suddenly said, I have something to talk to you about in private. Qingting. Old Master Qin furrowed his eyebrows, his gaze turning cold as he called Mr. Qin's name. Dad, it's not about family matters. Don't worry. With that said, Mr. Qin looked at Bei Yunj. You, Mr. Qin, we can talk here. Bei Yunj's tone was indifferent. Obviously, even if old Master Qin was around, Bei Yunj did not want to give Mr. Qin any face. 596 Mr. Qin's expression froze and he glanced at Yun Nua and Qin Yojiao. After a long time he asked stiffly. You got first in the physics competition? Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows but only looked at him. This gaze inexplicably made Mr. Qin feel guilty. However, he still braced himself and asked, Are these results real? As soon as he finished speaking, the arena fell into silence. Then old Master Qin slammed the table and stood up. His face was frighteningly dark. Bastard. How could someone ask their own daughter such a question? Dad, is this really not Lu Yan's doing? Mr. Qin stared at old Master Qin and asked. Old Master Qin was about to explode from anger. Mr. Qin suspected that old Master Qin was also involved in Bei Yunj's ranking. Qin Luyan's eyes were filled with sarcasm. He looked up. Dad, do you know Ger very well? Father Qin choked. I don't. What makes you think that Ger cheated? Or did you hear what Ger said? When Qin Luyan said the last sentence, his eyes turned to Qin Yojiao. This made Qin Yojiao's face pale and she panicked unconsciously. I've always known that Ger's results weren't that good. Mr. Qin clenched his fists, not daring to look at Bei Yunj's expression. Will she really improve so quickly? Dad, someone told you that Ger got first in the physics competition. Did that person tell you that the last time Ger was at Yun University, she was fancied by the professors of Neely University and Yun University and was fighting for her to enroll? Qin Lang's tone was cold and mocking. Qin Yojiao instantly panicked. How did Qin Lang know about Yun University's exchange competition? Chapter 396. Beside them, Qin Luyan and Qin Yu looked at Qin Yojiao coldly. Mr. Qin was also stunned. What? Yun University and Neely University were both top elite schools. Both of them wanted Ger. Not only Mr. Qin but even old Master Yun, who was beside him, was stunned. Neely University. Doesn't one only get an offer if they sign up? Old Master Yun remembered that the granddaughter of a friend he knew had taken 2 years to get into Neely University. But such a school actually took the initiative to offer Bei Yunj. Yes, I heard from Ger's form teacher that it's because Ger discovered the mistake in the question set by the professor of Neely University and was the only student who solved it. So, the professor of Neely University immediately promised the offer. But Ger doesn't like maths, so she rejected it. Qin Lang scratched his silver-white short hair casually and said proudly with pride. Qin Yu continued quickly, his tone cold. So, who's the one who has ulterior motives and is sowing discord? Qin Yojiao felt a chill run down her spine and she did not dare to look at Qin Yu's eyes. Mr. Qin choked. He did not expect that he had wronged Bei Yunj. Then, Before Mr. Qin could think about this carefully, Qin Yojiao suddenly stood up. Biting her lip, she walked in front of Bei Yunj and handed Bei Yunj tea, looking like she was admitting her mistake humbly. Yunj, it's my fault. I mentioned it casually and didn't explain it to Dad clearly. Don't blame Dad. I apologize to you. I'm sorry. Can you forgive me? Bei Yunj looked up lazily and stared at her leisurely. However, Qin Yojiao was certain that in front of so many people, Bei Yunj would at least pretend to forgive her. Yunj, I didn't mean to target you. Can't you forgive me? Qin Yojiao's eyes turned red as she bit her lip lightly. Beside her, Yun Nua could not stand it anymore. She felt that Bei Yunj was deliberately making Qin Yojiao suffer. Thousands of people at this moment. Bei Yunj picked up the tea Qin Yojiao handed him. The three brothers frowned and were about to remind Bei Yunj. In the next moment, Bei Yunj splashed the tea in his hand onto Qin Yojiao's exquisite face. Qin Yojiao almost screamed and immediately glared at Bei Yunj fiercely. In his heart he wished he could cut Bei Yunj into 1,000 pieces. On the other hand, Bei Yunj's bright eyes were languid and her eyes were cold. She looked extremely unruly. She smiled lazily. Miss Qin, do I look like a moral person to you? The Qin brothers, their worries seemed a little unnecessary. Mrs. Qin, who had just regained her senses, looked at Bei Yunj in exasperation. Bei Yunj, what are you doing? Promise Clouds also stood up abruptly, as if he was standing on the moral high ground. This is too much. Bei Yunj, are you targeting Jiao Jiao because she's easy to bully? She had never seen such an arrogant woman. Someone was apologizing to her, but she actually splashed tea on her face. Miss Yun, you've misunderstood. I only look at my mood when I bully people, not the person. Bei Yunj's red lips curled up, but in Promise Cloud's eyes, it was especially evil. Bei Yunj, suddenly. The man beside her, who did not speak much, said softly, Does the daughter of the Yun family like to interfere in other people's matters? Instantly. Old Master Yun could not care less about who was right or wrong in this matter. His expression changed immediately. Yanua, what are you doing? Chapter 397. After being reprimanded, Yun Nua looked aggrieved, but she knew that the Yun family could not offend the Hua family, so she could only sit down again. However, she could not help but think sourly, why was Master Du helping this woman to be unreasonable? This woman was clearly cold-blooded and vicious. Then Ahua Shidu's deep and magnetic voice sounded softly and it was not difficult to hear the indulgence in it. Yun, don't scare Grandpa Qin. The rest of the people were speechless. President Hua's concern was especially strange. Hearing this, Bei Yunj nodded. Then she turned around and raised her eyebrows lazily. Looking at the drenched Qin Yojiao, she asked considerately, Do you want to continue apologizing? Qin Yojiao's face turned green and pale. She took a step back instinctively, afraid that Bei Yunj would splash water on her again. Suddenly Bei Yunj laughed again. Her tone was neither slow nor slow, but it was arrogant. Miss Qin, you can go against me as long as you have the ability. But it's not a wise move to put your face in front of me. Hearing this, Qin Yojiao almost couldn't control the hatred in her heart and her face twisted. Seeing Qin Yojiao trembling with anger, Mrs. Qin's heart ached uncontrollably. She immediately wiped Qin Yojiao's face with a handkerchief and asked anxiously, Jiao Jiao, how are you? Before Bei Yunj came, Jiao Jiao had never been so angry. But now Jiao Jiao was being bullied, but other than her, no one else in the family cared about Jiao Jiao. Mrs. Qin gritted her teeth and could not help but blame this on Bei Yunj. Fortunately, the next moment, a voice sounded from the door. Mrs. Qin? Everyone turned around and saw a thin middle-aged man. Teacher Du Xiao. Mrs. Qin's eyes lit up and she immediately went forward. Why are you here so early? At this moment, Old Master Qin and the rest also stood up and walked towards the door. This was Du Xiao, a world-class musician. Seeing that everyone was so concerned about Du Xiao, Qin Yojiao, who had a gloomy expression just now, felt much better. There were countless students from Yun University and Nili University. Not everyone can be valued by Teacher Du Xiao and become Teacher Du Xiao's student. At the thought of this, Qin Yojiao's eyes glinted coldly. She knew that her chance to trample Bei Yunj under her feet had come. Compared to her, Bei Yunj would always be an idiot. At this thought, a smile appeared on Qin Yojiao's face. It was only when Du Xiao was welcomed into the living room that she called out sweetly, Teacher Du Xiao. When Du Xiao saw Qin Yojiao, he also smiled. Yojiao, I saw that you entered the International Musicians Association's preliminary examination. You're not bad. Do your best. All along, Du Xiao had been amiable towards talented juniors. It's just a preliminary test. I don't know if I'll have a chance to pass the next round, Qin Youjiao said humbly. You still have a chance in the second round, but in the third round, more people will be eliminated. You still have to work harder. Du Xiao thought for a moment. Thank you, Mr. Du Xiao. I will work hard and not let you down. Seeing Qin Youjiao and Du Xiao chatting so happily, the smugness in Mrs. Qin's eyes could not be hidden. However, when she turned around, she realized that her sons were too lazy to look over. Come and take a photo with second brother. I still lack a screensaver. With that said, Qin Yu did not care if Bei Yunji agreed or not. He hugged her shoulders and his handsome and arrogant face leaned towards Bei Yunji. Chapter 398. Bei Yunji was speechless. From the beginning to the end, Bei Yunji was expressionless. However, Qin Yu didn't care at all. After taking a few photos, he happily set up a screensaver. Seeing this, Qin Lang was unwilling to fall behind. I have a few mathematics questions that I don't know. Do you want to teach third brother? Qin Lang looked at Bei Yunji pitifully. With his young and arrogant short silver hair, he looked inexplicably like a loyal dog. Bei Yunji looked down and saw that there were a few mathematics questions saved in his phone. Seeing this, Qin Yu could not help but curse in his heart. What a scheming B***th. Qin Lang was from the mathematics department of Yunqing University, but he usually stayed in the club and rarely went to school. However, because of his excellent results, the school turned a blind eye to it. But now he actually had the cheek to ask her questions? Bei Yunji glanced at the question and looked at Qin Lang unconsciously. In the end, she explained it briefly to Qin Lang. After hearing this, Qin Lang was stunned. He did know how to answer this question, but the answer Guru taught him just now seemed to be simpler. What about the other questions? Qin Lang unconsciously moved closer to Bei Yunji, his happy eyes sweeping over Qin Yu. This was a blatant provocation. Qin Yu laughed coldly in his heart. Did this brat think that he couldn't deal with him? In the next second, Qin Yu turned around and said to Qin Luyin, Brother, Lang seems to have a lot of time recently. Why don't you find something for him to do? Qin Luyin's gaze swept past Bei Yunji and Qin Lang's shoulders quietly. He said calmly, It's time for Lang to return to the company to gain experience. Qin Lang? One by house, didn't they say that he would familiarize himself with the company after he graduated? Seeing this, Mrs. Qin remembered what Qin Youjiao usually said to her. Mom, I didn't do anything. Why do eldest brother and the rest only like Yunji and not me? Eldest brother and the rest didn't like Yunji in the past either. A cold sneer appeared in Qin Mu's eyes. Indeed, Bei Yunji was too capable. She had coaxed her 3 sons into a frenzy. Mrs. Qin made up her mind and turned around. Teacher Du Xiao must be hungry too, right? Let's eat first. This time, she specially used her connections to find out about many of Du Xiao's favorite dishes. He was just waiting for Du Xiao to be happy before he brought up the matter of taking in a disciple. As long as Du Xiao accepted Jiao Jiao as his student, no one on the internet would dare to compare Jiao Jiao with Bei Yunji. Not long after, everyone gathered around the dining table. At this moment, Du Xiao, who had been surrounded by people talking, suddenly saw a rather familiar face. His eyes widened, but before he could say anything, he was interrupted. Mr. Du Xiao, please try this dish and see if it suits your taste. Mrs. Qin was also very concerned about Du Xiao. This concerned whether Qin Youjiao could become Du Xiao's student or not. If it was possible, it might even be easy to enter the International Musicians Association. These are all my favorite dishes. Thank you, Mrs. Qin. Du Xiao glanced at the dishes on the table and smiled. You're too polite, Teacher Du Xiao. Jiao Jiao has liked your music since she was young. You can be considered Jiao Jiao's first teacher. Really? I'm honored. With that said, Du Xiao's eyes landed on Bei Yunji again, wanting to speak. Chapter 399. Du Xiao's expression did not look too good after being interrupted time and time again. But he still asked politely, What's the matter? It's just that, our Jiao Jiao also wants to find a suitable teacher now. I wonder if Teacher Du Xiao is willing to teach Jiao Jiao personally? Mrs. Qin asked with a smile. In her opinion, this matter was very likely to succeed. After all, There were not one or two peers in the entire country who were more talented than Qin Youjiao. What? Du Xiao frowned unconsciously. At the same time, this question stunned Mrs. Qin. Then Mrs. Qin said with a smile, Jiao Jiao is also at a bottleneck now and it's very difficult for her to break through. She wants to find a teacher to teach her. However, when Du Xiao heard this, he felt that things were even stranger. He could not help but glance at Bei Yunj, who was sitting opposite him, before he turned back to look at Mrs. Qin. He asked in disbelief, "You're looking for me? Wasn't the person sitting opposite him ruthless enough? Why did she have to seek someone far away?" Mrs. Qin also felt that Du Xiao's attitude was strange. "Yes. Other than you, no one is more suitable to be Jiao Jiao's teacher. I'm returning to Country R tomorrow, so I can't bring your daughter along." Although Du Xiao admired Qin Youjiao's talent, he did not want Qin Youjiao to inherit his legacy. But if he really chose one, Du Xiao could not help but glance at Bei Yunj and start to have evil thoughts. If he could make this person his student, would it be easier for her to be the president of the International Musicians Association in the future? After feeling a strange gaze from somewhere, Bei Yunj furrowed her eyebrows unconsciously and looked up instinctively. Then she saw Du Xiao smiling at her. Bei Yunj was speechless. What was he thinking? "It's okay. Jiao Jiao can go to Country R when she's free," Mrs. Qin could not help saying. Forget it, forget it." Du Xiao hurriedly waved his hands. "I can't harm Yo Jiao either." All he could think about now was letting Bei Yunj inherit his position. Where would she find the time to teach her? Seeing Du Xiao's clear attitude, Qin Youjiao's eyes darkened and she clenched her fists instinctively, her expression not too good. She thought that this matter was in the bag. But why did Du Xiao reject her so decisively? She had clearly checked and knew that Du Xiao wanted to groom a musician. Then why couldn't he choose her? Teacher Du Xiao really doesn't have such a plan? Qin Wanru's mother asked reluctantly. This was clearly a chance for Jiao Jiao to make a comeback. Hearing this, Du Xiao smiled but did not say anything. Suddenly, Qin Youjiao spoke. She stared at Bei Yunj and felt a sense of comfort in her heart, as if she was dragging Bei Yunj into the water. "I heard Yunj play the piano last time. It's not bad either. If teacher Du Xiao thinks that I can't do it, why don't you listen to Yunj's piano and consider her?" After that, Qin Youjiao was originally waiting for Du Xiao's rejection. But who would have thought? When Du Xiao heard this, he was stunned. He looked at Bei Yunj. "Do you really need it?" He did not know how good Bei Yunj's piano skills were, but her composition and writing skills were definitely not worse than his. If Bei Yunj wanted to find a teacher, she might have to wait for a musician from the last century to jump out of his grave. Hearing this, the rest of the people were stunned, some confused by Du Xiao's words. Only Qin Youjiao's expression changed subconsciously. A forced smile appeared on her face as she asked in a slightly stiff voice. "You know Yunj?" Du Xiao glanced at Qin Youjiao. After confirming that these people didn't know Bei Yunj's identity, he smiled. We met by chance. P.S. There are 2 more updates. Good people, remember to vote." Chapter 400. With that said, the entire venue was a little quiet. Old Master Yun's chopsticks accidentally fell on the table. What was wrong with this new elder young miss of the Qin family? It was clearly rumored in the industry that the fake young lady of the Qin family was extremely talented. The real young lady only had a good life, but she had no ability at all. But just now he heard about the 2 famous schools fighting for Bei Yunj. Now he saw with his own eyes that a top international musician seemed to have a good relationship with this elder young miss. The alarm in Mrs. Qin's heart rang. "What you said just now means?" Du Xiao could not help but look at Bei Yunj. "Good, do you really want to find a teacher?" His eyes were bright as he looked at Bei Yunj expectantly. It was completely different from when he rejected Qin Youjiao righteously just now. Even if he didn't say it, she could tell what Du Xiao meant. Old Master Yun's hands could not help but tremble. He really realized that he had stood on the wrong side. However, looking at Bei Yunj's behavior just now, she was not someone who would accept an apology at all. It was useless even if he turned around to express his goodwill. "I don't want to." The girl's languid and clear voice rang out unhurriedly. With that said, Old Master Yun's eyelid twitched and he could not help but glance at Bei Yunj. Did this person know Du Xiao's influence in the music industry? Didn't she see that Qin Youjiao was trying her best to please Du Xiao and become his student? "What?" Du Xiao asked weakly. "I'm going to take the college entrance examination soon and want to study hard." Du Xiao was speechless. The rest of the people were speechless. Was this excuse bullying old Master Du for not knowing about Yun University's competition? 520-inch sigh. This child is insensible. Teacher Du, why don't you give me your contact number? Let me persuade her properly. Old Master Qin suddenly said with a smile. Pei Yunj turned to look at him. Old Master Qin pretended not to see it and only smiled happily. If Ge became Du Zhao's student, who in this industry would dare to spread rumors about Ge? From the corner of his eye, Du Xiao saw that Bei Yunj really didn't say anything. He seemed to understand something and shook hands with old Master Qin without batting an eyelid. He smiled gratefully and said, Really? Then I really have to thank you properly. I'll treat you to a meal when I'm free. When the surrounding people saw this scene, they inexplicably felt that something was not right. Just now, didn't Du Xiao say that he was about to return to our country and was unwilling to accept students because he was afraid of delaying Qin Youjiao? What was going on? Mrs. Qin's expression was also stiff. Teacher Du Xiao, are you planning to take Yunjin as your student? Chapter 401. Did Du Xiao mean that he didn't like her? Then why did he like Bei Yunj? Under everyone's gaze, Qin Youjiao bit her lip and did not ask further. However, her expression did not change. She never thought that Bei Yunj would benefit from her finding Du Xiao. Let's eat first. What else can we talk about when we eat? Old Master Qin said with a smile with a rosy face. It was obvious that Old Master Qin did not expect Du Xiao to want to take his granddaughter in as a student. At this moment he was already overjoyed. On the other hand, Old Master Yun's eyes had been fixed on Bei Yunj. He had a feeling that she and Du Xiao did not know each other ordinarily. Otherwise, why would Du Xiao admire Bei Yunj so much? Du Xiao did not even like Qin Youjiao, who was beside him. After the meal, Mrs. Qin and Qin Youjiao's expressions were the worst. In the end, before the Qin brothers could think of a way to get them out, Mrs. Qin left with Qin Youjiao. She did not want to stay in this place anymore. However, Mr. Qin's expression was guilty. Taking advantage of the time when Qin Lang and the other brothers were not glued to him, he walked towards Bei Yunj. What happened just now? Mr. Qin, are you here to apologize to me? Bei Yunj's gaze was distant and even her curved eyes did not have a smile. Yes. Mr. Qin clenched his fists and admitted it. Thinking about it, it's not the first time you've caused trouble for me. Bei Yunj's red lips curved and her tone was lazy. Compared to apologizing, I hope that you will disappear from my sight with your beloved daughter. Jiao Jiao didn't say that you cheated? Mr. Qin explained instinctively. Did she say that there's any conflict with me wanting her to disappear? Bei Yunj was still smiling lazily. There was a coldness in her extremely beautiful eyes that Mr. Qin had never seen before. Then, before Mr. Qin could continue speaking, Bei Yunj saw Huashidu accompanying Old Master Qin down the stairs. The corners of her lips curled up as she walked towards the stairs. Bei Yunj asked with a smile as she leaned lazily against the railing with one hand supporting her head and watched the man walk down the stairs. What are you talking about with Grandpa? Talking about you. The man's thin red lips hooked up, then lazily stretched out his hand, leisurely scratched her chin. Bei Yunj was tickled and subconsciously rubbed against his cool fingertips. Washidu could not help but chuckle when he saw this. In the eyes of the bystanders, this small interaction was inexplicably doting. When Old Master Qin saw this, he came back to his senses and felt that something was wrong. In the study room just now, he had only chatted with Huashidu about Bei Yunj's living environment and studies. He felt that Huashidu was someone who could take good care of Gur. But now, looking at this scene, Old Master Qin inexplicably felt that something was out of his control. Grandpa Qin, I'll take Yunyun back first. I'll visit you another day. The man in front of her was so polite that no one could find fault with him. Okay. Be careful on the road. Old Master Qin, an ordinary elder, could not help but remind them. Huashidu replied, Okay. Isn't Gur staying at the old mansion today? Qin Yu blurted out instinctively. Why would she stay? Doesn't your sister need to go to school? Old Master Qin rolled his eyes. However, in fact, seeing that his brothers cared about Bei Yunj, he was relieved. P.S. Be good and remember to vote. Chapter 402. That's enough. Don't just stand there and watch. Old Master Qin laughed coldly. I usually see that you're so busy, but you took the initiative to stay today. So it's because of Gur. Qinyu was speechless. Not really. Old Master Qin chuckled and glanced at his 3 grandsons. How could he not know why everyone was here today? If it wasn't for Gur, how long would these 3 be willing to stay in the old mansion? However, he could also tell that compared to these 3 biological brothers, Gur liked the younger generation of the Hua family more. After leaving the old mansion, Tsing Su was driving in front. Hua Shidu's eyes were lazy and his well-defined hands loosened his tie casually. Even the 2 buttons on his collar were loose. He exuded a lustful and frivolous aura. The man glanced at the girl beside him. Yun, why were you angry just now? He knew that this child was not someone who would give others a way out. However, it was rare for him to act so recklessly. Bei Yunj was looking at the night view on the sparkling bridge outside. Hearing this, she turned back and thought for a while before she realized that Huashidu was talking about Qin Yojiao. Bei Yunj's eyes curved and the smile in her eyes was cold and unrestrained. She needs to be taught a lesson. It was not that Bei Yunj did not know that Qin Yojiao had manipulated public opinion to drag Director Lin down and called Director Lin to come to Hengda. It was just that it was not time to touch her yet. But it did not mean that Bei Yunj had the patience to watch her jump around under her nose. Seeing the coldness in Bei Yunj's eyes, Huashidu knew the relationship between the 2 of them. Brother, are you going to educate me? Bei Yunj looked up at him and asked with a smile. Huashidu's gaze landed on her unwaveringly. He chuckled lazily and carelessly pinched her cheeks. The man's posture was light and seductive. The warmth of his fingers was so ambiguous that it made her blush and her heart race. My elder young miss should be more pampered and willful. As for the rules, it was not up to his child to follow. Hearing this, Bei Yunj's heart skipped a beat. It was as if a different emotion had taken root in her heart and was growing quietly. Before long, Huashidu suddenly remembered what old Master Qin had said just now. Yun. Bei Yunj asked, what's wrong? You can go back to the Qin family's old residence in a few days. As soon as the man spoke, Bei Yunj subconsciously moved her fingertips. The emotions in Bei Yunj's eyes were unclear. After a moment, her fingertips fiddled with her clothes again. Okay. After that, the atmosphere in the car was a little strange. Even after getting out of the car, Bei Yunj waited for Huashidu as usual. She was more than a meter away from him. How could Huashidu not tell that something was wrong with this young lady? Subsequently, he had just started walking towards Bei Yunj when he saw the little girl in front of him also walking forward. Yun? Okay, I'm going back to do my homework. The Pei in front acted as if nothing had happened. The corners of the man's upturned eyes were seductive, but there was a smile on his face. His voice trailed off as he called out again, Yun. What's wrong? Bei Yunj's tone was gentle. Brother is a little tired. Can you help brother back? Bei Yunj. She turned around and looked at the tall man with long legs in front of her expressionlessly. However, the man's posture was lazy and light. He did not look tired at all. Bei Yunj took a deep breath without batting an eyelid. I can't help him. I see. The smile on the man's lips was almost imperceptible. Just as Bei Yunj turned around, he suddenly walked over. Then Yun should be tired. Chapter 403. Hearing this, before Bei Yunj could deny it, someone suddenly hugged her waist and turned her world upside down. The man easily carried her up. However, Bei Yunj felt that her center of gravity was unstable and subconsciously wrapped her arms around the man's neck. What are you doing? The man's deep and magnetic voice whispered in her ears with a smile, but his tone was light, flirtatious, and seductive. Are you tired, Yun? Then I'll carry you back. Bei Yunj looked up and saw the man's refined side profile without blushing. She fell silent. It was all this face's fault. It was too deceptive back then. She had used all kinds of tricks along the way, but the man did not put her down. Until they returned to the living room. Huashidu placed her on the sofa and stared at her. Bei Yunj. Can I go upstairs? The man's tone was lazy. No. Bei Yunj, seeing that the little girl had been silent, the man's Adam's apple moved and he laughed softly. Can't you stay with me for a while longer? Bei Yunj mimicked his attitude just now. No. Who knew? The man looked at her for a while and laughed softly. He suddenly leaned closer and dragged out his last syllable. His deep and ambiguous voice seemed to be blatantly seducing her. Yun, do you mean that you can't do anything? Yes. Bei Yunj turned her head and did not look at that face that could easily make people lose their bottom line. The corners of the man's lips curled up imperceptibly, but he was not frivolous. Then can you not act coquettishly with me? No. Before Bei Yunj could finish speaking, she reacted. Her eyes moved and she subconsciously looked up, but she did not expect to meet the man's half-dark eyes. It was so tempting that her legs turned to jelly. However, the man's eyes had melted into a thick black color and he was still staring straight at her. His sexy throat moved slightly and he let out a chuckle. He lazily reached out and rubbed her cheek. Yes, so cute. It took Bei Yunj a while to react to his unexpected compliment. When did she act coquettishly? Bei Yunj looked up expressionlessly. Washido. Clearly, this little girl was already on the verge of exploding. Yes, I'm here. Bei Yunj's eyelids twitched, but when she looked at the man's handsome face, her anger dissipated. She gritted her teeth and only managed to squeeze out 2 words. Behave yourself. After saying this, Bei Yunj stood up and walked upstairs. The man's usually cold peach blossom eyes were curled up at this moment. His smile was too good-looking and seductive as if it could electrify people. The next day, Bei Yunj received a call early in the morning. It was Marcus who called to tell Bei Yunj that there were a lot of things that could be developed in the computer industry. He asked her if she planned to do it herself. After all, whether it was in the field of high-performance computers or the information industry, they had a natural advantage in terms of technology. Therefore, if Bei Yunj was interested, she might be able to give it a try. You want to do it too? Bei Yunj sat in the back seat and asked. I don't have the time. Someone came to talk to me about this some time ago, so I thought of you. Marcus smiled. It had to be said that Marcus was indeed very considerate of Bei Yunj. Thank you, Marcus. Bei Yunj smirked before she said, I have an idea. When do you plan to do it? Marcus asked immediately. Bei Yunj said kindly, there's no hurry. I'll look for Delaney later. I want to catch up with him. P.S. Be good and remember to vote. Chapter 404. Marcus didn't understand at first. After hanging up the phone, he thought for a while. He only thought of one use for Delaney. Marcus was speechless. He probably didn't want to reminisce about the past but to get some money. At this moment, Delaney, who was still admiring beauties at the banquet, was still ignorant and happy. A few days later, the results of the second round of the International Musicians Association were out. 2 members of the International Musicians Association sent her the selection video and the admission results. As there were more eliminations in the second round, Bei Yunj could not help but frown after watching a few videos of people advancing to the second round. She watched all the selection videos again. In the end, somehow she stopped at the selection video of an old man wearing a gentleman's hat and a tuxedo. She patiently listened to this original performance and called the members of the International Musicians Association. The members of the International Musicians Association obviously did not expect Yun, who had always been cold and ignored people, to call him. Jianghu was careful. Yun? Hello. I would like to ask, why didn't number 107 advance? As Bei Yunj spoke, she watched the old man's video again. Upon hearing this, Jin Jiheng immediately went to look at number 107's selection video. Another voice sounded from the other end of the phone, as if asking him what had happened. After Jin Jiheng finished explaining, there was no response from the other end of the phone. Bei Yunj was not in a hurry. She just waited in boredom. Not long after, it was another person replying to her. His voice was sharp and deep with a hint of mockery. He's too old. Besides, this is an original song. Anyone can write it better than him. He was the one who eliminated this old man. The original song was so unpleasant. He did not know what kind of mentality he had to dare to use it to participate in the International Musicians Association selection. Girl Classmate Network. Did the International Musicians Association accept all kinds of trash? Jin Jiheng warned, Arn. I didn't say anything wrong. Arnie's tone was disdainful. Alright, I got it. Bei Yunj restrained the light in her eyes and said unhurriedly, add a spot and let him pass the second round. Instantly, Arn froze and his tone became sharper. What? How can there be such a person in our International Musicians Association? He was already very dissatisfied with the recruitment of Country A's people. Now, they were still recruiting such old and untalented people? Really? Because I think I can. Bei Yunj said slowly. When Arn heard this, his eyes were filled with malice. He could no longer hide his dissatisfaction with Bei Yunj. He sneered. Yuan, I admit that you're young and talented. But recruiting such a piece of trash, could it be that you made some shady deal with him? After all, she had been indifferent during the first round. Arn, watch your words. Kim Jiheng frowned and reprimanded. President Du Xiao thought so highly of Yuan. Wasn't Arn slapping President Du Xiao's face by offending Yuan like this? Afterward, before Arn could continue mocking him, he heard a lazy voice. She smiled faintly. Do you think I need to explain it to you? You. Arnie's expression changed. If you don't want to work anymore, get Elder Du to replace you as soon as possible. Bei Yunj said casually. Hearing this, Arnie's face turned green and red, but he did not dare to tell Du Xiao. He still had business to attend to, so how could he leave? Moreover, you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.